So let's call this meeting of the Concord Finance Committee to order. I'm going to ask the clerk to
Mhm.
call the roll.
Okay, this
Carlin?
is this is the roll call to begin. Suresh Bhatia, Peggy Briggs,
Present.
Brian Conway,
Present.
Kathy Kukalo,
Here.
Eric Dahlberg,
Present.
John Garofalo,
Here.
Pat Geyer, Gerard Jensen. I don't think he's here yet. I'll find out later on. Don Kupka,
Here.
Lindsay Liss,
Here.
Carlin Reed here, Paul Rodriguez,
Here.
Kazi Sedruzaman, Shri Tupul,
Here.
and Lois Wassoff.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, then we've called the Finance Committee to order, and what we're going to do now is immediately adjourn ourselves temporarily and move to the public hearing, which is the primary purpose of tonight. So I'm going to call the public hearing to order. I have a little opening statement, and then we'll move right to the Minuteman presentation. So I just want to wish everybody a good evening. My name is Lois Wassoff. I'm chair of the Finance Committee, and I want to thank everyone who's here for joining the public meeting tonight. One of the most important tasks of the Finance Committee each year is to hold these public hearings on warrant articles that have or may have a financial impact on the town. These hearings give the town citizens an opportunity to learn more about those warrant articles and to ask questions of the sponsors. The presentations and the questions asked by committee members and by citizens attending the meeting are critically important in helping the Finance Committee perform another of its obligations. Each year, the Finance Committee votes on the recommendations it will make to town meeting on the warrant articles. These recommendations are included in the Finance Committee report that will be distributed in advance of town meeting. Your presence here tonight is very much appreciated. Your participation in the hearing process is an important part of our annual town meeting process. Each article being presented tonight will have an impact on life in Concord for our residents, businesses, town employees, and town visitors. The Finance Committee is going to hold 3 public hearings this month to review 33 articles on the annual town meeting warrant out of a total number of 50 articles. Tonight, we'll be hearing from the town on its proposed FY27 operating and capital budgets. We'll also hear about the proposed FY27 operating and capital budgets for Concord Public Schools and for CCRSD, the regional high school. We have asked the town and the schools to present their proposed budgets on the same night because their budgets comprise almost all spending from general revenue that will be voted on at annual town meeting, over $140 million, as you will see in a few minutes. We will also hear tonight from Minuteman Regional Technical High School. As a member of the Minuteman Regional District, Concord pays an assessment each year. That assessment is determined by the Minuteman budget and also by how many Concord students are enrolled in Minuteman, and we'll get more detail on that in the Minuteman presentation. Our second public hearing is this coming Tuesday, March 10th, when it's supposed to be 50 degrees. The Finance Committee and the public will hear from the Community Preservation Committee, and we'll hear about other articles having financial implications, including the establishment of stabilization funds. At our final hearing on March 12th, we'll hear from the town's enterprise funds, including the Beatty Swim and Fitness Center, the light plant, water, sewer, and PEG access and cable-related fund. I encourage everybody to attend these hearings also. As with all public events, we expect a civil dialogue. We ask that all speakers keep their presentations brief, 5 or 10 minutes at most. Public comments will be limited only to the article or issue being discussed. All public comments must be made through the chair. Individuals who speak out of order, disrupt the meeting, or interfere with others who are speaking will be removed. Questions are encouraged. However, please keep in mind that presenters may not be able to answer all of the questions this evening. Be assured that your questions and input will be considered by the presenters as they develop final presentations for annual town meeting. Copies of all the public hearing presentation materials and the agenda for each Finance Committee public hearing is included in the Finance Committee packet and will be posted and available on the town website and also at the annual town meeting section of the town's website. Links to the recordings of each public hearing will be posted when made available by Minuteman Network. These public hearings are being recorded on Zoom and will be accessible through Minuteman, and they're also, I believe, being live streamed on Minuteman's website. After each presentation, the Finance Committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions. Then I'll open the floor to members of the public. If you want to ask a question, please select the raise hand function on Zoom and you will be recognized. After the Finance Committee closes each public hearing, the committee will immediately afterward go into regular session. Our intention is to discuss and possibly vote on recommendations for each warrant article heard during the public hearing, although that will be some degree time dependent. We might carry over certain articles to next week. As always, the regular sessions of the Finance Committee are open to the public, and we encourage all of you to attend and listen. Just a couple of other calendar reminders. Don't forget that our annual town election is on March 31st. Annual town meeting will be on Monday, April 27th at 6:30 at the Concord Carlisle High School with subsequent days as needed. Again, thank you all for being here. And now I am going to turn the hearing over to Minuteman Regional so it can begin its presentation on Article 17.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your sharing our presentation. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Heidi Driscoll. I'm the superintendent of Minuteman. And with me is my business manager, Nikki Andrade. And she will be leading us through the numbers of most of our presentation. We can switch to the next. Perfect.
Thank you, Heidi. Dee Ortner is our school committee representative for Concord. So as part of the article, we are moving that the town appropriate $1,886,548. And we can go to the next slide and we'll walk you through the budget and how that is allocated to Concord. So our total budget FY27 for operating and capital is 2.99% above our FY26 budget, and it's just shy of 33.5 million. To break that out a little further, we have an operating budget, which is 3.84% above FY26, just shy of 26.5 million. Our operating capital recommendation includes mostly our capital stabilization account, in addition to some leases we have in our athletic field revolving debt service. And then our building debt is somewhat consistent year to year, just less than a 1% change at just about 5.5 million. So overall, our total assessments to our entirety of our 9-member towns is 26,710,366, which is a 2.44% increase above FY26. But as you'll see in this presentation, the assessments are broken out based on, at first, the minimum required contribution, and then the 4-year rolling averages of all the towns. So for Concord, the assessment this year has an increase of 7.67%. And this is the breakout with the minimum required contribution, which is set by the state, and then broken out by transportation, as well as our operating capital in our building project service debt, which is excluded for Concord. So as we mentioned before, the overall enrollment and the 4-year rolling average does have an impact on the budget and how that's allocated to the town. So we wanted to highlight here. For this year, we have 657 students, which is the blue line. From our member towns, we have 615 students, so a majority of our school is made up with our member town students. And we have 42 non-member town students, and those students pay a tuition that we offset the member town assessments with. Specifically for Concord, you have 40 students, and just highlighting that you did have 6 students graduate and 15 have applied and have been accepted for the class of 2030, believe it or not. So as we mentioned, that 4-year rolling average does have an impact on the assessment breakout per town. So here you'll just see a comparison of the increase in the assessment for Concord compared to the 4-year rolling average, again with the 2.44% increase overall compared to a 3.2% increase in the 4-year rolling average. And again, just summarizing the appropriation that we're recommending, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Your presentations are always so clear. Thank you very much.
Excuse me,
I'm
sorry.
going to do, it's okay. I'm going to do this a little differently just so we can have, things can be orderly in this virtual environment. I'm going to go down the list of finance committee members and just ask people if they have any questions that they want to ask. It'll just be easier than looking for raised hands and potentially missing people. So in alphabetical order, Peggy, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Minuteman?
She's
Okay,
on
not,
mute.
yeah. Okay, Peggy, I'll come back to you. Brian Conway, any thoughts, questions?
No questions.
Okay. Kathy,
No questions.
Eric?
Thank you. One quick question. Can you briefly summarize any bigger picture savings or efficiencies that you're working on and that are reflected in your FY27 budget that'll save the taxpayers of Concord money?
I can tell you something that we're working on right now, and hopefully it will affect us in a future year. We are working with the MSBA. We're a pilot building on an MSBA recommissioning. So they are checking our building envelope, our HVAC systems, our plumbing, you name it, to see if they're working to capacity. And they're making recommendations to make sure our building is up to par and we maintain it appropriately. Last year, we also completed a 20-year projection for our capital needs based on our building as it was last year. So we are working on that reality versus projection plan, which will help us have a budget that does not go up and down, we hope, and we can maintain stable assessments for our towns.
And I'll just piggyback on that. We do contribute to the capital stabilization fund within this budget. We have recommended $1,050,000. And as Superintendent Driscoll mentioned, the plan is to continue that based on looking at that 20-year plan and that projection. When we do see those years where we expect higher capital costs, we're planning to use that capital stabilization fund instead of coming back and asking the towns for more money.
John Garofalo, any questions or comments?
No comments here. Thank you.
Okay. Gerard, I know you've joined. Any questions or comments? I can't see you,
He said
Gerard. Are
no
you on?
comments, thank you.
Oh, no comments? All right. Thank you. Don Kupka, any questions for Minuteman?
No questions. Thank you. A very clear presentation.
Lindsay, Liz, any thoughts?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Carlin?
Yes, I do have one. It concerns the OPEB, uh, other than post-employment benefits. Can you give me the OPEB trust values as of a certain date and the OPEB liability percentage funding level as of a certain date? That was not part of
Absolutely.
your presentation, but I'd like to know what that is, please, if you have it.
Yes, our trust fund balance is 3,125,000. Our
Go down, say that number again, please.
sorry, 3,125,000.
Okay.
As of January 31st. Our
Which
total
year? January 31st of
this year.
Okay.
This year.
Okay, go ahead.
Our total liability as of June 30th, 25 was 17
Okay.
112,000. So at this point, we're about 18% funded.
That's 18%?
18%.
Got it.
We had an OPEB advisory committee put together in 2021. So at this point, following their recommendations, we are increasing a 5% increase each year to our OPEB contribution.
Got it. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Next up is Paul Rodriguez.
I don't have any questions. Very clear presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Shri Tupel.
Yeah, just from a curiosity point of view, on your overall enrollment, you had shown a nice graph there. Is it keeps coming? I know you do have visibility until 2030. Is it coming down or going up, or is it stable? I'm just curious from that point.
So our enrollment, because we are not a K through 12 district, it depends on our admissions every year. So I can tell you that there are fewer children that exist in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts over the next several years. So right now, about 7% of our member towns, students or children come to Minuteman. So if you look at your birth rate and your projections in your public school and use that number, that may be a connection to who enrolls. But right now, as I said, we accepted every single, or as Nikki said, we accepted every single one of the 15 students who applied.
Yeah.
I don't know if all 15 will come, but we still have room to accept more. So it really depends on what students want to do and what type of education they want to have. Our enrollment is based on interest and need.
Okay, thank you.
And I just have one quick question. And as always, the presentation was very clear, and thank you for it. My question is, what do you consider your full capacity? And it's been great. It's great that you've been able to accept any student from one of the towns that has expressed interest. But when do you hit a ceiling? When do you need more space?
So right now we have 175 seats per class. But with that being said, could we add additional students without increasing staff? We could. We would just have to make a couple changes. And our goal is to accept every single student who wants a vocational immersion education. And we have not hit that capacity yet. We actually accepted 220 students for the 175 spots. And we will continue accepting them as they come in through the summer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Ryan, I guess you should be the one who monitors the raised hands. I want to go to the public and ask if anyone attending who isn't on the Finance Committee has any questions for Minuteman.
Okay, looking now. Don't see any hands up. There are 42 attendees.
Okay. Then I think we're done. And thank you again for your time. And you'll be hearing from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
so
having us.
much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is, it should be in front of me, Article 13. So are Lori Hunter. I see Lori Hunter, and is Bob Conroy here?
Yes, we're here.
Yep.
Welcome. Um, so if you guys are ready to present on Concord Public Schools operating budget and capital budget, go right ahead.
Great. I'm going to just open it up and then Bob's going to take over. Ryan, you're welcome to pull up the slides while I open it. We're just glad to be here tonight. So thank you for having us. The CPS budget hasn't really changed since we met with you earlier a few months ago. So we are at guideline, as you know. Bob will talk through the highlights of how we were able to arrive at that. And then we can talk on capital from there. So Bob, all yours.
All right, thank you. Good evening. All right, I will run through the CPS operating budget. The first slide's just the motion. The overall big picture story is that we're maintaining level service. We're supporting our initiatives and goals and our strategic plan. We do see a trend of some declining enrollment. And our in-district special education programming is robust, and we've been able to maintain robust in-district programs. We've also been able to reduce our out-of-district revenues, reduce our out-of-district expenses through our special ed programming. We have some possibility of revenue for special education programming with this non-resident tuition fund. It enables us to accept students into our programs. Don't know that we have had a couple potential interests pop up. I don't know that we have anybody enrolled now, but it does give us the flexibility to accept somebody in programs if it fits our program needs. We've had some success in grant funding. We had a multi-$100,000 grant to support EL, professional development and materials, curriculum materials. We continue to pursue competitive grants, including a Green Schoolworks grant, and we will continue to do so in addition to the entitlement grants we receive. And then no additional staffing is in our plan. In fact, we'll talk more about that as we go through.
Yeah,
Next
maybe
slide.
Bob, I'll just comment, not only no additional, but I'm in the process of identifying layoffs. And we can talk more on that as they come up in the plan.
So our objectives in any year, these are really constants, are to maintain our existing programs and supports to students, to support our strategic plan, meet legal mandates for special education, homelessness, and other requirements. In some cases, those are unfunded. In other cases, they're funded or partially funded. And then balance what our needs are with the fiscal capacity of the town of Concord. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So big picture, you can do big picture view here, and these are by the categories that the Department of Ed typically looks at it. But I'll here just comment on the total. It's a 2.75% increase over FY26 in alignment with guideline. You can see the totals listed there, and this does not count the McKinney-Vento funding, which is separate and gets added as a supplemental appropriation to reimburse us for those costs that we don't budget for but pay for in the prior year. Next slide, please. So our key drivers are declining out-of-district enrollment. Some of this is students moving up from 8th grade to the high school. In other cases, this is some students who've elected to come back in district to our programs. Excuse me. Typically, when we see an out-of-district enrollment, you'd expect the transportation to also decline, but the timing of their formula is such that it's on a lag basis. So in FY27, we're not going to see that decline. We'll expect to realize the impact of that in a future year in FY28. We mentioned this, Dr. Hunter just referenced this. There are some enrollment-related staffing adjustments, reductions. And there's also some reallocation of staffing to meet student and program needs. Next slide, please. Overall, there's a reduction of 1.55 FTEs. Tutors and aides is actually increasing by 1.78. We've also added special education administrators that was in FY26, funded by reallocating savings from other items. And the reductions include one FTE ELA specialist at Thoreau, which has actually already been eliminated this year, but it's rolling into the budget for the first time in FY27. And then 4.33 FTEs in addition that are enrollment-related reductions that are being driven by student shifts in student population. Next slide. So our key drivers by main category in administration, we're up 5.1% over FY26. It's primarily contractual salary increases. There are some contract services for communications firm and web hosting, and some administrative software costs. Our teaching and learning is up 3.1%. This is by far the biggest component of our overall budget. The 3.1%. For teacher salaries, it's up 3.3%. That includes the COLA. Staff, in addition, can have step and lane increases as they advance in experience and their professional, their education. This includes the two special ed administrators that are previously referenced. Those previously, there was just one position supporting all three schools, which was hard to support. With three, that's also contributed to us being able to maintain strong in-district programs, and that contributes to the reduction from 13 to 6 out-of-district tuitions. Next slide, please.
Yeah, Bob, I'll just restate, those were reallocations. We gave up other positions for those administrators. We did not add them in last spring.
So we talked about the enrollment-related reductions of 3 FTEs. In addition, factored into our budget, we had assumed 3 CTA members would opt into an early retirement incentive. That was realized. We did get 3 early retirement people who opted into that. We didn't get more than that, so we didn't get more savings, but we met what we had factored into our assumptions. Non-teacher salaries increased by 4.5%. It was a half of an FTE. There's also a decrease in federal Title I funding that's factored into this. We budget that as an offset to our tutor costs and the Alcott school, and we're anticipating we're pretty confident there's going to be a decline, and so we factored that into our budget as well. Also within teaching in the non-salary side, instructional materials declined by 31,000, and contract services decreased by 23,000. We added Cartwheel mental health support services where students can get direct service to mental health services, which is a challenge in the marketplace right now. At the same time, we had offsetting reductions in translation services where we were able to obtain a grant-funded translation printer. By scanning documents, you can get it translated into a different language. So some of the common language that we need to translate to, we can use that for. And that was a significant benefit to us, both operationally, not having to coordinate, plus financially. And we also reduced special education contract services by 40,000. And these are all just, I should repeat this for anybody who's new. We do a zero-based approach to our budget. So some of these reductions are by going through in detail, items that are going to be purchased or needed. And it's revisited every year. We don't just roll forward what the budget amount was from the prior year. Other school services includes, really it's the non-educational items that are more operational. It includes nursing, it includes transportation. And so you can see this is up 4.6% over last year. And the key driver, primary contributor to this is that special education case transportation assessment. for transportation it's both in-district and out-of-district special education transportation. And we anticipate that will moderate in the following year. The remainder of this is really contractual inflationary increases for wages, for our regular ed transportation, for consumable parts, for fuel, and things like that. Next slide. Our maintenance and operations is really up essentially 3% in line with inflation. This does include the stormwater assessment now. That was built into the budget in FY27, so it's already factored in. And then we had some contractual increases for custodial and maintenance staff. Our fixed charges is really driven mostly by insurance. It's up significantly. Part of that is for a good reason. The Ellen Garrison building has significantly more value than the Peabody and Sanborn buildings did. And so there's a insured value portion of the increase. In addition to that, there's also rate increases that are partly industry driven, partly our experience with some prior losses. So those are the key drivers for fixed charges. And this is kind of the tailwind we have to our budget is the out-of-district tuitions. It didn't come, some of it came from students moving from 8th up to 9th grade. But in other cases, it came through working with families, our special education department, and some of those families being comfortable with in-district programs that we were offering and electing to come back in district. So you can see I present the gross amount went from 1,452,000 to 726,000, essentially cut in half, a $726,000 increase. At the same time, some of the funding for special education, you've heard us talk about circuit breaker, is driven by how much you're paying for out-of-district tuitions. So the reimbursements we're going to get for circuit breaker will correspondingly have some decline. And you can see it's similar. It's about similar to the decline in out-of-district tuitions being about 50%. The decline in circuit breaker is anticipated to be about 50%. And the IDA funding is more stable. That does not adjust with our out-of-district placements. So the budget offsets are decreasing by 430,000, and the net of those two is an overall decrease of 296,000. Next slide. This is just a high-level view to give you a picture, and really what's driving the non-salary is that out-of-district tuitions. Next slide, please. Other funding sources, just to share these are our key other funding sources outside the general fund for Concord Public Schools. And most of these are used, as budget relieving. The preschool fees we apply as an offset towards our preschool salaries in the budget. We spend that down to zero every year. The facility rental fees are small so far. We'll see if those grow as people get more familiar with the new building. But in total, it's a little bit over 1.2 million. And that's the motion again. Any questions?
Let's start with the Finance Committee. And if people are comfortable with it, let's do what we did and quickly go through the roster and see what questions people have for Bob about the operating budget. Peggy, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Brian, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Kathy Kukula?
No questions. This is quite comprehensive and in line with our prior discussions. Thank you.
Eric Dahlberg.
Thank you. In addition to the special ed topic, which is noteworthy and really commendable, Are there other bigger picture savings and efficiencies that the district worked on and that are reflected in the FY27 budget to save Concord taxpayers money?
Yeah, I'll take the first response to that, and Bob can add on. Certainly the enrollment decline, we've been working really hard to be right-sized for the staffing that we need based on the fewer number of students. So that's been an ongoing process over the last few years. This year, Willard especially is touched because the shelter had sustained some staff, and with that closure, we've adjusted, as well as in some other places that still are in discussion. So I think we're doing a good job, Eric, of reevaluating every year based on where the kids are and what we need, and not just carrying staff along without them needing to be there for level service. I think Bob's got a couple other mentions, more on an operational side.
Right. So the primarily procurement related, we're looking at, I've met with Megan Zamuto, Deputy Town Manager, and Russ Carstead, the Town Facilities Manager. We're looking to piggyback and work together and do collaborative procurement for certain items. One of them will be purchasing, the natural gas for heating the buildings. We currently have separate contracts, and we're hoping that maybe we can get some better pricing if we combine our usage. We also have talked about a there's a type of procurement that allows you to do efficient. Basically, if you're gonna, I forget what the Mass General Law section it is, but you're able to work with vendors who can come up with energy saving projects or financial saving projects, and you can avoid having to pay for it and essentially work out having the savings that are realized pay for their services. So if we find opportunities, we haven't identified specific projects yet, and the procurement hasn't gone out. But once we work with the town and select a vendor, we can have them propose projects to us, and we're able to say yes or no to specific projects. For example, we could replace LED lights, and if it was going to save us 20,000 a year, they would pay for it up front and bill us. For example, I don't know what their financial model is for sure, but they would recover their cost over 4 or 5, 6 years. And in the long term, it would be a savings to the town or the school, whichever project we picked, and even with the vendors building in their profit. So those are the two biggest things that we have going on right now. We'll continue to look at it. It's something we try to do every year because it is a challenge to deliver a low budget increase. And we need to typically look for some savings in other areas to do that.
John Garofalo, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Gerard, any questions?
We see that Washington, D.C. is now sort of dismantling the Department of Education. Have you seen any decrease in the federal mandates that you now need to report on? Has that changed at all?
I'll take that one. No change at all. I guess on the good news side, we aren't seeing any funding changes either, despite all the reorganization. In fact, the federal government just passed the education budget, and it's whole and stable. Whether there are folks there to monitor the same demands of us, that's probably our question, but we can keep you posted.
No, I was just curious because, we hear a lot of, the changes coming out of Washington, and I was wondering if that affected you.
Yes, thank you.
Right, thank you.
So far, so good.
Don Kupka.
Yeah, thank you. I do have two questions, and thank you for this very clear presentation tonight. I don't expect answers tonight on these two, but if you could follow up, that'd be great. One is that we see a nice decrease in the out of district placement costs. And so if you normalized for that, how much was the rest of the increasing? That absorbed a lot of increase. So, which is something that I think we have considered. It'd be good to know how much is the underlying spending growing. And then secondly, the administration costs are rising while I think the student-facing costs are declining. And I'm scratching my head here because I know you're reacting to a lot of needs. Would you, in the remainder of this fiscal year, would you be open to doing a trial, sort of side-by-side trial using artificial intelligence to craft the PR releases that you do, and then see if that at a sort of a $20 a month subscription could be adequate to replace the consultant costs that are in the budget for PR. It occurs to me that there's several months left, and there may be a time to trial that and maybe rule it out. I don't know. Just a question, though. We're looking for opportunities in the town to find efficiencies, productivity enhancements, and that may be low-hanging fruit. Thank you.
We are using AI for a lot of things, more and more, with its pros and cons, but certainly there's some efficiencies there. We'll get better at being able to name those for you.
Yeah, the budget increase without OOD is fairly straightforward. I mean, we can essentially just take the DESI slide and just not count the last slide, not count the out of district section and give you a revised. So we can do the math and share what that number is.
Thank you. Lindsay, any questions?
Just one question. So back in the fall, and I might not have the most recent number, you had shared that the number of students in Concord Public Schools was 1878, I think was the number that you shared. What is the current forecast for the number of students you expect in fiscal year 27? Knowing that, it's not going to be perfect or, perfect forecast. What assumption are you operating under right now?
And we can do better if we pull offline and actually work some numbers for you. The incoming K is always the question. We expect it to all stay fairly stable. The outgoing 8th grade, we're expecting to be similar to the incoming K, but K is this crystal ball we don't always have. And folks register slowly from January. Usually by May, when we say there's an orientation for K, that's when we really start to see them come in. So K is the swing right now that I can't totally answer, but we seem to have stabilized overall. We aren't seeing, and that was expected that decline would happen over the last few years and then settle. But also things we don't know for sure, Lindsay, are some of these housing starts, some of the smaller and other developments in West Concord that are actively in construction. So it's the unknowns we can't factor in for, but overall we expect to be similar.
Thanks.
The high school is a different answer when you get to that, because the outgoing class is still bigger than the incoming. Yeah. For one more year.
Carlin, any questions?
I have two. One is a follow-up on enrollment, and the other is about OPEB. On the enrollment, you said that it's been declining. And given your most recent answer to Lindsay's question, it kind of sounds like it was declining, now it's leveling off. And I'm talking about the overall enrollment. Do you have a sense of how long the decline in enrollment has been occurring? Is the total amount flattening off? What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, so it's been the last 3 to 4 years that we've seen the declining enrollment, which we expected that. That was not a surprise. That was in all the projections that we had seen. It does seem to be stabilizing, which we also expected. So more to come with all those unknowns. And if, these houses come online, if Novo continues to move forward as an apartment complex, that will change that. What one buffer was that I mentioned The shelter became a little bit of a mitigator to the decline, and then we realized that this year all at once. But otherwise, we seem to be stabilizing. The K classes have been coming in similar, or even a little bigger than the last couple of years. So we seem to be getting level.
Thank you. Now, on the OPEB question, just clarify for me, is the Concord Public Schools OPEB lumped in with the town's OPEB? So that you don't really
Yes.
have a breakout for CPS, is that right, Bob?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Then I have nothing else. Thank you.
Paul Rodriguez.
No, thank you for the great presentation. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Sri Tupul.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions.
So that leaves it to me, and I don't actually have any specific questions for you guys except to comment that it's very nice to see the benefits of long-term investment the way you've done with special ed, and to see the impact of that after the work that's been done over the years. And I was really pleased to hear about the work that's being done to find synergies with the town, because I think that's a real opportunity to get some benefit going forward, to eliminate some inadvertent duplication of resources and to find ways to manage things more efficiently. I think is something that really should be focused on, and hopefully will start to show some real impact in the next year or two. So thank you for the presentation. I'm going to open this discussion up now to the non-finance committee participants and ask Ryan if he can look for any raised hands.
Got two raised hands, Lois.
Three.
Okay.
Oh, three.
Yeah, I see
Okay.
three. So
There we go.
I see four.
Now they're coming in.
Okay, well, I'm going to do
Got it.
them in the order in which I see them in my screen, which happens to be Heidi first. So Heidi, please go ahead. You're on mute, Heidi.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is move to Sven. And let's take Sven's question. We'll return to Heidi after we take a few more questions. So Sven, please go ahead.
Yes, Sven Weber, 50 Belknap, co-chair of the Land Use Working Group. The Land Use Working Group has the fortunate or unfortunate task in the next 3 to 4 months to model out the impact of the housing that was referenced here by the school, and the impact of more housing to town services, including what it could mean for the school. So it would be great if the school could really say how many students they're expecting for next fiscal year based on the current status in both school segments, the elementary school and the middle school, because we will model on top of that the impact of the housing and what that could mean. And the second question also in there would be good to understand where in which grades the loss is. Is this in the incoming grades, which didn't sound like that from this? But if it's across all grades, it could be for us a pinpoint that people moving out of town, and we need to understand that for our modeling. So that would be great to get these numbers.
I can answer in general. Sven, we'd be happy to have you shoot us an email and we can get specifics to you tomorrow. And I know Tracy Moran has been sharing some of this information with the land use group too. I'd say overall, it is across grade levels, but it doesn't seem to be move outs. It just seems to be the same trend the rest of the state is experiencing, where there's just fewer children, which we can all assume means there's fewer families and adults. We always monitor outgoing and really look at any trends there for any exodus, and that doesn't seem to be the case. There's just fewer kids coming into us. In terms, it's fairly level across the grade levels as well. What I can't predict exactly, some of these housing starts are really in live time going to play out. That little Assabet complex in West Concord, like we won't know until families actually move in there where those will be. And we're gonna have to wait and see how these homes come online and who moves in. Um, I can't answer beyond that. I think the good news is with the decline we've seen, and it's not as dramatic a decline as other communities are seeing. That's also good news. But with the decline we've seen, we've got some space. So I think we've done the modeling. We worked with the MCI consultant in a professional way, and there seems to be consensus that some housing increases are going to be able to be absorbed. And I can give you that model that they put together with about how many kids per school. It's about 40 to 50-ish. Some of which, if the apartment complexes come on, would absorb more quickly.
Yeah,
But I
so
can send you all that, Sven.
yeah, so baseline is important. We have two
Yeah.
AI-driven models we will be using. So we let two AI models compete against these things. And if you have these data, we could challenge the AI models. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
send us an email with any specifics that you need.
It'd be helpful to see the output too, if your kind of committee is chaired with coming up with what their projections will be. It'd be interesting for us to see.
Will do.
Yeah.
So next I'm going to go to Mary Hartman.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Okay, good. Thanks for taking my question, Lois. I'm Mary Hartman, 16 Concord Green, Unit 6, member of the Select Board speaking on my own behalf. I'd like to spend a minute talking about your maintenance budget. I see that it's gone up 3% over FY26, and that includes, I think you said, the stormwater management fee. And I'm wondering, we've got some aging schools. We built those schools to last 50 years. And do you feel confident that we're spending enough on maintenance to get the life expectancy that we're hoping to get out of these buildings?
Right now, yes. As they get older, we might need to spend a little bit more. There's small, regular preventative maintenance costs that we have built into our budget. And I think that's more what we're talking about. There's bigger ticket items that would become capital, like if we had to replace a roof, which won't be too far off, I think, for some of our schools. But in terms of day-to-day maintenance, we do have pretty robust plans, particularly on the HVAC systems. And on our staff, we have two certified electricians and a certified plumber. So we can do a lot of the work ourselves in-house to a certain extent. Certainly they work very hard. They also do the clearing the snow. But I think right now, it's particularly on the CPS side, I think we're well funded. As we get older, there might be some there's things that have useful lives, and as they approach that, I don't know that I would necessarily. I mean, we'll do our best to maximize how long things last, but at some point, things do hit a useful life, and you need to replace them. But Dr. Hunter and I have confidence in our maintenance team and the preventative maintenance plans they have in place.
Thank you.
Heidi Cater, if you can unmute yourself, if you still want to ask a question. I'm not seeing Heidi unmuted.
She has.
So excuse me, I know it says she can permission to talk, I see, but her microphone still seems to be off.
Yep. That's fine.
Okay, in that case, I think we're going to move on. But the schools will be presenting next on their capital budget. So
Well, she just took her mute off. The mute's not on anymore.
Heidi, do you still have a question?
It appears her hand went down too, so.
Okay, well, then let's move on.
Okay.
So thank you for the presentation on the operating budget. And now, Lori and Bob, let us move on to Article 14, which is the Concord Public Schools capital. projects.
Great. Actually, some of your questions will facilitate right into this. So I'll let Bob pull it up and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay. So the first slide is just the motion. Just to clarify there it is. The total ask is for $501,430. It's all tier one capital. Those are projects under 250,000, which fits into tier one per the capital model that's been established. Next slide, please. Just to remind folks on the scope of what's included in Concord Public Schools capital projects, it includes preschool, kindergarten, and grades 1 to 8, and covers all the different projects we have related to buildings, grounds, equipment, infrastructure. So we process-wise, we have a study that's been done by a consultant, and we also have feedback from our own observations walking through the schools and our maintenance teams and feedback from principals and others. And that's what has led us to these projects. In the Alcott School, we have a building management system that's end of life. We were close to the point of not being able to use an automated system to maintain our HVAC and have to set things manually. So that's our highest priority item probably on here. And that's at the Alcott School. We have some catch basin repairs that need repair there as well. Auditorium projector is not functioning, and that's 15,000 at Alcott School. At the row, there's a glycol mixing tank that needs to be replaced to help the HVAC process continue to work well. We have about a 20-year-old floor scrubber at the row that needs to be replaced as well. That's basically on its last legs, not functioning at times. And that's at the row as well. And Willard project is for 40,000 is auditorium sound system replacement. We've had folks come in and look at this, and we prioritize that at Willard as a important project. Next slide, please. There's also some refurbishment and replacement that needs to be done to the building facade that's been recommended, and we want to work that into our plan next year. Have a stainless steel sander that they used for salt, distributing salt at the schools and storms. Certainly getting a lot of use this winter.
Feels endless right now, but anyway.
Yeah. We have two copiers, replacement of two copiers that we've built into the plan as well. And we've had an aging fleet in the last couple of years. We've had replaced a couple copiers. This should get us to a point where we're more current. And then the last item is the touchscreens that we have. Well, it's older technology, but we've moved to touchscreen video boards in the classrooms. This will enable us to get, I believe it's grade 5, 4, and 3 at each of the elementary schools. Obviously, we don't need to do the middle school. It has new technology. So this will enable us to replace the units in essentially half of the classrooms in the elementary schools. And we anticipate asking for the other half of this funding next fiscal year to complete the project. And that's the motion again there.
Oh, thank you. I'm wondering if it might not be better on this one to go with raised hands instead of doing the full roll call. Maybe that'll move us along. So anyone who has a question, raise a hand and I will start calling on you. And if something you want to join in later, raise your hand, even if it isn't up now. Okay, Carlin, yours is the first hand I see, so I'm going to call on you.
Thank you. Are you spending enough for the capital plan for CPS? I remember that the dollar amounts allocated in the past has been more like $900,000, and here you've got 501,000. I'm curious about why the change. I mean, maybe I'm asking the wrong question, like why are you spending so little? But that was one
Well,
thing. The
then,
other thing,
yeah.
that's one. The other question I had was, I understand that there are some repairs, some modifications being done to the middle school that aren't part of this capital project, but they're taking out of the middle school building fund. This is for enhancing the some of the audiovisual for MMN for the library, if I remember correctly. So those two questions.
Why don't we go backwards and I'll answer the
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
So this MMN has infrastructure in the in the auditorium in the cafeteria at the new school. The school committee visited and had a really great school committee meeting there, and we realized the functionality of the library really would be a benefit to the entire community to also build infrastructure into that. So it was brought as a request to the middle school building committee, which is still functioning, less frequently, but functioning. And they approved an upgrade, installation to that library so that it'll be plug and play for MMN and we can do more meetings there. I think this Concord School Committee will probably make that a little more of their home once it's ready. And we can invite other boards to do the same or any community purpose. So that's one of the last expenditures that's going through the middle school building project, other than the very small punch list that's left. And I think it's an exciting opportunity that we took advantage of before the project closed out.
As for the 900,000, that was a historical amount that I think was just granted to the schools. I think before my time here and maybe in my first year, maybe my second, I don't know when it stopped, but um, and it wasn't necessarily based on need. It was just that here's the allocation to the schools, make it work. What we've presented this year is what we need. We don't need a new roof, but at some point, the items we have on here tend to be smaller capital items. Well, they're all smallest, maybe aside from the technology. But over time, there are going to be bigger items. Like, I mean, we'll certainly apply for MSBA help on the roof, but there's going to be bigger capital projects. The roofs are the ones that come to the mind the most. At some point, maybe a parking lot at one of the elementary schools. One of them's not in great shape, but so it tends to be bumpy unless we're not going to drive the train, but if the unless the overall plan was that the town finance committee or others wanted it to be kind of a steady number like it was before, we could certainly try to talk about that. But what we're presenting now is individual specific items, and but to your point, there will be a time when we have larger items. The roof itself will exceed this full year's request.
Yeah, we're seeing, just so you all understand, like we're hearing roof projects of $8 and $10 million. It's stunning going on in other communities. So it's going to be a big challenge when we get to the point where we need to start talking about that. It's coming. Your elementary schools are 20-ish or better years old. So it is coming. Carlin, that number is like right up the middle. We've been below it. We've been a little above it. Probably over the last 3 to 4 years, we've been able to prioritize, especially with the new middle school coming online. But more to come on what we need to do next. You've seen the big plan, and there are some bigger projects in the down the line.
We also should mention that we did some fairly substantial work on the Thoreau campus that was funded by a combination of donations and CPC money. We'll still seek to pursue those. So those are capital items that we're funding through other ways.
Yep. We're moving over to Alcott now to envision what that campus needs and try to not ask for this committee to need to consider anything directly.
I am not seeing any other hands raised by the Finance Committee. So are there any further questions that any Finance Committee members want to ask about Article 14? Okay, let's move over to the public. Is there anyone in the public who has a question about Article 14? I see Sven. Anyone else? Sven, the
Yeah.
floor is yours.
Yeah, Sven, 50 Bernab, co-chair of the Land Use Working Group. I just have a question with respect to Ripley. I understand, and that's good that you're trying not to spend too much on capital expenditures on the Ripley building. But I'm slightly concerned that there might be some emergency repairs that could come up. Do you have a reserve for potential emergency repairs at Ripley or other buildings?
Um, Not really. There are prior year unspent capital funds, and those are the articles that were written in prior years are written with language that's flexible. So it's not, depending on the nature of an emergency, there are some funds available, but um, that I would say it depends, we can't replace a roof, obviously, but certainly could do some patchwork. But to answer your question, there are some older capital funds that are still there, maybe in the tune of a couple 100,000. Most of the rest of the capital funds are dedicated for specific projects. But over the years, there is a balance that's not been spent.
Yeah, things coming in under budget, or yeah, some smaller things that didn't need to actualize. But we've been working with Jennifer to work through those balances. But to your point, Sven, a little cash wouldn't be a bad thing. We don't have great reserves at CPS.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, also specifically, we used to have I don't remember if it was 25 each building or 50 each building, but there
50.
was a specific allocation for Sanborn and Peabody due to their age. And that's something we could talk about next year with the finance committee, and maybe have it kept separately somewhere else where if if it's not needed, it just returns back. But that's something we can talk about for next year.
Yeah, it's a great point for sure. Those original boilers just keep chugging. So we're hoping that continues to be the case.
I see no other raised hands. Ryan, am I missing anything?
No other raised hands.
Okay, then I think we get to hold on to Lori and Bob a little longer, and we're going to move to Article 15, CCRSD.
Great, thank you. Bob will certainly take over here in a moment. There have been ongoing discussions about the regional budget as recently as last night. So Bob's going to go through the slides and then give you the update in the memo that he provided to the school committee last night. Most of those, just to sort of preview the headline, most of those are related to state aid, health insurance, and some of how we had talked about some capital, an approach to capital through OPEB. So we've been tweaking all of that and tweaking the numbers. So the number went down some from what was in the original proposed budget, which I'm sure you will not be disappointed to hear. In terms of instructional and programming, that has not changed. Similar comments on special education and declining enrollment. Bob will mention some robust revenues that now come in through special ed. I'm in the process of identifying some reductions in staff, also because of enrollment decline overall. And then just a reminder, and I know you have been acutely aware of this, Carlisle's assessment shift has been 9% this year. So despite the budget overall increase being very small, it's a big lift for them. And you are actually going to spend less at the high school than you did last year because of the assessment shift. So Bob will go through all that, the backup to that, and then we can take any questions.
So the slide deck I'm going to go through now does not factor in what we presented last night. I have a separate memo that I'll do afterwards, and I'll just explain what's changed. We will update this slide deck. We didn't have time to do it before the meeting because the meeting was in Boston last night. All right, so Lori's gone through this slide. We'll go on to the next slide. Oh, maybe I should change my font for the town meeting. The budget objectives are the same as at CPS, to maintain our existing programs and supports to students, support strategic plan initiatives, meet legal mandates for special ed, homelessness, and other requirements, and to balance that with the fiscal needs of both towns. Next slide. Um, Overall, this is our full expenditure budget, including debt services, both operating and capital items. Is a 1.63% increase over last year, and I'll go through the categories separately in the future slides. Total budget of 41,043,946, an increase of 658,994. Next slide. The Can folks see that? The administration slides.
We'll brighten it for when we do it again. I think it's okay for tonight, Bob.
Yeah, I thought I did it in white font. I don't know, but anyway, the district administration is up 7.2%. That's includes we made an aggressive assumption in our budget last year about hiring an instructional tech specialist. We thought we'd get somebody, a young superstar in the role, and we got somebody who's an experienced superstar in the role that was somewhere higher in the scale. So that's the key driver there, and the rest of it's contract services. Next slide, please. Um, our teaching and instruction is up 1.5% over FY26. This is very low. It factors in the contractual increases of 3% for COLA. It also factors in any steps and lane increases. And so anyways, you can see the COLA increase is 3%. In addition, this factors in reductions of 4.15 FTEs. This is enrollment driven, and it's across various subjects. There's a couple of retirements we're not replacing. In addition to that, there's further reductions in forces that we're working through and communicating. One other factor that's helping here is the special education programs that we have are attracting students from other districts. And we've been able to increase the number of students in our special education programs from other districts. Well, also they fit within our capacity, they fit within our program needs. And so you can see a substantial increase there for the revenue we're pulling in for those. And that's that's also serving to offset our instructional costs here. Next slide, please. Actually, I'm sorry, I should mention one other thing. We also increased the tuition rate for those programs. It used to be 45,000 per year. It's 48,600. The school committee voted that for next year. So it's partly an increase in students and partly an increase in the rate that we're charging for these programs. Next slide, please. So 3 additional students tuitioning in, and it's at 48.6, and that this just provides the detail plus the increase of the impact of increasing the tuition rate. On the non-salary side too, we also have contract services increasing, and we're going through a process to get to do a portrait of a graduate, what we anticipate, what we want to see in our graduates. It's a DESE requirement for all high schools, and we're working with a consultant that's recommended by them to meet this requirement. Other school services is up 4.2%. This includes, similar to CPS, we have a significant increase in the case special ed transportation assessment. That's really the key driver. We have contractual increases for coaches of our sports teams and athletics, contractual increases for transportation staff, and then there's some other minor increases for increased student club advisor stipends. Maintenance and operations is up 2.5% over last year. And 14%, this isn't really for the maintenance team, but this is where it belongs in the budget, is for the acquisition of a replacement copier. Utilities are up 13%, and our IT infrastructure costs are increasing as well. Kind of the various upgrading some of the capabilities we have, and the remainder of it's some contractual increases price-wise with vendors. Next slide, please. The fixed charges, it includes insurance costs, both commercial insurance, liability insurance, as well as the employee insurance. We thought it was going to be, so this is one of the updates that I'll have. So the number here is significantly more than what it ended up being. We got good news late in the process, as did the town. But in our first pass budget, this was a 12.7% increase. Their forecasted rate increase was much more substantial than it ended up being in the end. So this was a key driver in our first pass budget, 545,000. The Concord retirement assessment is an estimate. I believe they just completed their audit. We'll get a revised number, but we anticipate we'll be fairly close there. And then other insurances increased separate from the employee insurances as well. Next slide, please. Fixed assets is up primarily for some instructional equipment that's needed in different programs to the tune of 16,000. And our bus replacement, the cost of buses has gone up a bit, and we haven't factored that into our replacement budget. So we increased it by 5,000 this year, and we'll be monitoring that going forward to keep pace with inflation. Next slide. Debt service is set up as level principal, declining interest. So typically you're going to see a decrease here unless we have new debt. Our landfill remediation ban is paid off now this year. So that's one thing that has come off the books. The access road is essentially replacing it. Previously, we've been paying mostly just interest for that. So that is into this year's budget. And then the other bonds, as I mentioned, are declining interest, which is on level principal, which is driving this decrease. Out of district decreased by 323,000. We were actually hopeful it was going to be more than that. However, the state seems to be approving some substantial rate increases from private schools. They're able to petition and request rate increases in their programs from time to time, and we've seen increases in some out of district programs, 20% in a couple cases. So when we did our forecast to you early in the guidelines process, we actually thought this might be greater, but it's good news overall. You can see the gross tuitions is down versus last year, and our offsets are up a little bit because we've received a little bit more circuit break over the last couple of years than in prior years. The last category, these are not special ed, charter schools, school choice. Those are up slightly as well. Those are other tuitions that we're responsible for, but are not part of special ed. So those, just wanted to call those out separately. Just a summary by salary and non-salary. The bulk of the budget is, in salary. The breakout is fairly, I mean, they're both under 2%, 1.63% total. I've also summarized here what the overall FTE impact is. Next slide, please. So the OPEB funding level is at 60%. This was as of FY24. The asset, the balance of the trust actually increased. There was favorable investment in performance. So you can see it went up to 11.7 million at the end of June 30, 2005. I believe the audit was just completed. I have a report in my email. We're meeting with the OPEB trust auditors tomorrow. believe it's gone up from 60% to 61 point something in terms of funding status. And our budgeted contribution this year is 375,000. Next slide, please. Um, this is our revenue budget for next year. And again, this is one of the changes we'll have. We actually increased it based on updated information from the state. Just timing wise, so you're aware, we built the revenue budget before the state begins to give us their first set of projections. So we do our best, and then we get information in late January in the governor's budget that we've adjusted to. So these numbers actually came up about 90,000. But the first pass was a 2% increase. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of an eye chart, but this just shows how you take the total budget at the top of 41 million and subtract all of the revenue sources to arrive at the assessment to the towns. So that's here just to kind of walk people through how we arrive at the assessment. Next slide, please. And these are the summaries that we provide. So the first one is Concord. Its assessment overall without debt is increasing by 0.09%. You can see the shift in enrollment has had a drastically different impact on Concord than Carlisle, and affects them disproportionately because they're smaller. So you're closer to the total average than they are. If you do factor in the debt service, that's the bottom number where Concord was at negative 0.79% increase over FY26. And these are the student totals. You can see a significant shift with Concord declining by 47 and Carlisle increasing by 11. Next slide. Our E&D is at 4.2%. It was certified in June 30, 2024. It's with the Department of Revenue right now. They're doing their final review. It's gone through its initial review. And we anticipate it being certified imminently. I think that this, until they do it, we don't have an official number. It's similar to free cash. You need to wait to see what their results are going to be. But I'm anticipating an increase to bring us a little bit closer to 5% in E&D because we've had some favorable revenues that contributed to that. Okay, next slide, please. And there's the motion again. I think that's it.
Thank you.
And I think what I talked to Ryan, he's going to let me share my screen now so I can show you the memo that we shared with the school committee last night.
Great.
If I can find it here. Bear with me.
Do you need me to get it, Bob?
Yeah, if you could, I had it in my tabs here. Oh no, I have it on a different. I'm sorry, it's not in Google Chrome. It's in Edge. So let me. I just sent a request to let me share the screen.
So yeah, we agreed to that. It should be coming on now.
Okay. So can folks see the memo here? Okay. So I'm just going to walk through different sections. Our revenue, here we've aligned it with the governor's budget, the cherry sheet that comes out on municipal revenue estimates. We've adjusted it up by 90,265. So our revenue budget's come up by that amount. They've forecasted a slight reduction in charter reimbursement, the Chapter 71 number, Chapter 71 regional transportation reimbursement, and Chapter 70 is kind of the core school funding model. So in total, that's up 90,265. Again, that's just based on the timing of the budget and getting updated revenues. The Minuteman Health is the guidance from, I'm not Minuteman, that's the former group, Maya. The guidance from them initially was high. With their revised estimate of 4.3%, we're able to reduce our budget by 156,422. So that's factored in as well to this pass of the budget. So those are the two key drivers in our decrease. When it comes to capital plans, you might recall that we had previously proposed, we anticipate needing to replace the turf in FY28. And we had proposed a plan where we took all of the OPEB contribution and repurposed it to capital stabilization to fund a combination of the 27 projects and also put some money aside for turf field. It didn't seem like there was, I know Carlisle was pretty clear they didn't like that approach. And I think some feedback from FinCom as well in Concord was that wasn't the preferred approach to fund through capital stabilization. So what we did instead was we're putting it directly into the capital budget, only the FY27 projects. We're not future funding anything. And in order to request from Carlisle was to try to find any way we could even on a one-time basis to help them absorb their large 9% increase. And so to fund these capital items, we are repurposing the OPEB, but reducing it in the operating budget with the directly by the same amount as the capital projects that are being funded. And I'll present those here now. These were part of the 5-year land plan that we presented previously. The only change from FY27 is we took $8,000 out that we're going to fund through the operating budget. And because it was under 10,000, we didn't feel like it should be in here. So this is the capital for FY27, 286,000. These are projects that we all shared previously in a prior presentation on capital. This is just a summary of kind of category of capital: vehicles, building, and grounds. And in order to fund this, we are reducing our OPEB line from 375 to 89,000 in FY27. What that does to the budget overall is it changes it to here's in terms of the overall expense reduction. The expense reduction is really it's just the health insurance on the expense side. You might remember the 90,000 was revenue, so that's not factored in here. Reducing our expense budget by 156,422, and the change between this number and the fixed assets represents the capital, and there's a corresponding reduction in fixed charges, which is the OPEB, to keep the overall increase constant in line with what was previously approved, and then factor in the reduction in health insurance beyond that. So it's a 1.24% increase. The capital budget and operating budget increases are shown separately here. And the capital budget includes debt service and capital projects. And then just to show you the assessment impact, here's the total, factoring in operating and capital together at the top. Concord is at negative 1.47%, a decrease versus last year. If you looked at just operating, it's down 1.55%. If you look at just capital, it's down 0.79%. And this includes the 286,000 or Concord's share of it. So those are the changes we made last night. They were voted and approved by school committee to reduce it beyond what you saw in the previous slides. And I think I'll stop there unless there's any questions.
So I'm going to open it up to the Finance Committee for questions. I have one question. A lot of this seems like good news that we weren't necessarily expecting. Is there any potential for bad news between now and town meeting?
Another snowstorm would be bad
Always, we
news.
never know.
No more snowstorms,
You don't
please.
see
No more
anything
snowstorms.
coming. Yeah, I think I think we're hopeful this all just holds and no surprises happen.
Yeah. Carlisle must be relieved.
They've still got a lot of work to do, but at
Yeah.
least we made a little progress at least.
Yeah. I guess my only other question is, how comfortable are you with that dramatic a reduction in OPEB? I mean, you've been in a good position on OPEB. You've been ahead, I think, of of where a lot of your peers are. So to both you and both Lori and Bob, are you comfortable now with this dramatic reduction for this year?
I think we are, and Bob will speak to it more. We're making some nice interest income, which is offsetting some of the decrease. So I think we're staying steady towards where we need to be. Do you want to add to that, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, so the OPEB trust doesn't need to be invested conservatively like municipal investments, like typical municipal investments. So it earned over 10%, I think, last year. And it's done well in previous years as well. It's not guarantee of future performance, but on average, we would expect a 7-8% long-term return. On top of that, I think there's a little bit of we're trying to balance the philosophies of the two towns. I think Carlisle doesn't necessarily share the view that we should be funding it as much as we are. They're nowhere near as much funded as the town of Concord.
Yeah, I know that.
And they're struggling to accept the 9% increase. So, the part of their ask was to what can we do to help balance things, even if it's one time. I don't know that we have, other than the turf field. I don't know that we have a lot of other capital projects at the high school in the near term. We do, I should mention this too, we do want to get a group together with maybe the FinCom of both towns to develop a capital model for the high school going forward, because it's been a challenge to figure out how should we fund some capital projects. The amenities building had a few things beyond just the funding, but it ended up being funded through CPC. The turf field, I don't think artificial turf is eligible for CPC funds, but some of our other projects are not going to be CPC eligible. So I think we're going to want to have some common rules so that when we bring these budgets to the committees, there's already alignment on the process, and we're not like this year. We had presented it as a proposal. We weren't, we asked for feedback, and that's why we're changing the way we were funding the capital projects this year, is based on the feedback we got. But we do need a roadmap, we think, for how we should be presenting regional capital going forward. You know, what thresholds do we want to borrow at versus just have it funded in cash? This year, it's being funded through an assessment, but a turf field for 900,000. We'd want to hear what threshold do you think we should borrow at? Maybe it's 250. I don't know, but that's something that's important on our radar, and we'll follow up and ask for a representative to help us with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I see hands up from the committee, so I think I'm going to go to going back to letting people volunteer their questions, and I encourage everybody who has a question to please raise their hand. And why don't I start with John Garofalo?
Thank you for this. How do we feel about setting the precedent of using an OPEB reduction for like a one-time offset just because a town isn't happy with the assessment given to them, and the potential for that, coming back again in future years? Thank you.
Yeah, no, we've talked a lot about that for sure, because it isn't just about Carlisle. Much of this was to find a way to do some capital things this year without a process in place, which is why Bob just referenced the rest of that comment about how we need to work together this summer to outline a process that we can bring regional capital projects. Because the building's young, we just haven't had the need in a really long time, other than the big ones that are their own standalone articles. So that's where we got stuck, John, was like, we have these needs. How are we going to do this? Normally, putting them in the operating budget wouldn't be the first choice. But because we're doing it late, to try to be sure those 3 or 4 things get done, reallocating the OPEB was a reasonable approach. I agree. This wasn't how we want to do it year after year. And Carlisle is not just the only reason at all. In fact, most of it's to be sure we get those things done. It's a special ed van that's going to come off the road, another plow truck that is probably operating as we speak, and a few other HVAC things. So it's been a good learning curve this year to have some things that we can try to figure out how to do in a lower key way, but then really name that we need a process. So that's a great question. We've talked a lot about that. It's not just for Carlisle as much as they're the ones struggling this year. We've
you.
never made adjustments for either town based on those issues.
Great.
In
Thank
terms
you.
of keeping the assessment equal overall too, it is an approach that helps you keep it equal overall, because if we end up borrowing for the turf, it's going to be less than the 286,000. And so when you have year over year impact to taxpayers, it does smooth it. But yeah, we certainly want a roadmap to figure out how we should be looking at these things going forward.
It got pretty bumpy the last couple of weeks, which is why we were doing stuff even last night with the school committee. So
I'm going to go to Carlin next.
Thank you. I share John's concern about the precedent setting for OPEB. I'm seeing that same approach being used by our retirement board, saying, oh, we can delay it by reducing the OPEB contribution. The question I have regarding the OPEB is, at the school committee discussion for the region, was every member of the school committee united in agreeing to this, or was there some dissension in that discussion regarding using OPEB for the capital project?
the votes have not been split. Last night was a unanimous vote. But that's for a 1-year decision. I don't know that would be the case year after year, Carlin, to your point. So.
Eric next.
Thank you. Unrelated to the OPEB issue, you had some interesting ideas for CPS in terms of bigger picture savings and efficiencies that you're looking at. Anything you can share for the region?
Yeah, I think the one thing I would mention, similar to the way hoping to partner more with the town, we're really opening communication up with Carlisle. The first topic there is special education, no question. But I think the more we talk, the more we're going to realize some ways to be more efficient. We're in the same business. We share kids at some level, whether just the transition. But I think we're going to find ways to continue to operationally maximize that.
We're also allowed to that collaborative procurement I talked about for CPS. We're allowed to do more than one district on that. So we could on the natural gas procurement, we can certainly participate. The region can. We would just do a collaborative procurement for that. So we'll continue to, things that CPS partners with the town, where it makes sense, the region will as well.
I see Lindsay has a question.
Yeah, sure. So two kind of enrollment related questions. The first is related to John and Carlin's questions around the Carlisle assessment. So you mentioned that it's a little easier to forecast at the regional level because we know the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade populations at each district. What is it expected to be next year and the year after that? Are we going to see a swing back to Concord?
Yeah, Bob, do you have the projections in front of you?
I don't have them in front of me, but my recollection, I'm pretty clear, was that it was a slight shift back towards Concord. But there are variables in this model that I don't have as much. The number of students that elect to go to a private school, like there's the Fenn School and the Neshoba Brooks School. We don't know what those numbers will be. Like there's certain entry points at ages, and then at ninth grade, we in my model, I forecasted the same number of students are going to go to Minuteman. It sounded like a little bit more might go to Minuteman than I factored in. So that's another variable. And then move-ins in our model, I didn't factor in move-ins. Those are hard to predict. That's a piece that I would, going backwards, we used to use NESDEC to do our enrollments, and they weren't that sophisticated and they weren't that helpful to Dr. Hunter and I. They looked nice. They were nice charts, but we we did our own model this year that was fairly basic that helped us. And there's pieces that we'll look at that those variables like the private school enrollments, we'll look to see if we can find trends. But the biggest component going forward is probably going to be the new housing growth and a number of new students, although typically those tend to affect the elementaries, and we see them in those numbers before they roll into the high school because it's typically younger families.
Yeah.
Although maybe depends on the housing prices. But so there's factors. But we do have a model that said that next year we'd see a slight shift towards Concord, not nearly as drastic as this year. And even if there is a slight shift, it's muted because Concord's so much larger. When there is a little bit of a shift, it doesn't impact you as much as it does Carlisle.
Yeah. It just feels like these big shifts towards Carlisle are probably a lot more rare. And, if they could build in something that kind of has some kind of stabilization or something.
And it's exponential,
right?
so the impact
Yeah.
is much bigger. They had a big incoming ninth grade class, and we're rolling off some of the very biggest classes at the high school. This is the last senior class of 300 this year. So I think a perfect storm kind of formed there. But you're right to ask for sure.
So I know those were like slightly off topic. So thanks, Lois. And then the last question is similar to the other question. So that I had around CPS. In the fall, you had told us we had 1,195 students at CCRSD, and that we were projecting a 3% or 3.1% decrease for next year. Like understanding the variables, is that still kind of the projection, about a 3% decrease in enrollment at CCRSD next year?
To the best of what we know, yes.
To the best of what you know, okay.
And mostly it's that senior class going out and the freshman class being smaller. And that'll be the last year of those bigger deltas, and then that will stabilize too.
And then the tiniest little question around that. Do your pupil counts count these non-resident students that you have coming in? I know that's small, but will they going forward kind of include those folks or no?
Well, they don't count toward the assessment. They count in the overall enrollment.
They count in the overall enrollment. Okay, thank you.
But we subtract them to divide it up between the two communities.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So I am not seeing any more hands up in the Finance Committee. So
Lois, I did have one follow-up question to what Lindsay asked, if I may. It'll be brief,
okay.
I promise. Following up to what Lindsay was talking about, the overall enrollment trends. She had mentioned about the shift, but look at the overall enrollment trends. Did I hear you correctly, Dr. Hunter, that the trend that next year there'll be about a 3% decrease, but then it will stabilize going forward? Is that what you're estimating?
That's our expectation based on what we can see in the K-8s. That decline that we talked about earlier is making its way finally all the way to grade 12. So when this senior class graduates in June, that's the last bigger delta between the incoming freshmen and the outgoing seniors.
All right, so I've assuming that all the Finance Committee members have asked their questions. I see one hand up in the public. Cheryl Carmen, would you like to speak?
Oh, it's actually Carmen Reese. Sorry.
Oh, hi, Carmen.
Yeah, who knows how
Sorry.
your computer shows up, right? So I just have two quick questions. The first is whether the warrant has an assessment number in it of $26,995,441. But from this presentation, I think the number is $26,810,821. Have I got that right?
Bob's checking. Make sure you.
All right, it wasn't on my screen. Yeah, that's the revised number as of last night.
Okay. All right. So that means, of course, that you'll have to change your motion because it won't be as printed in the warrant. And the other question, and this, I will confess, this is not strictly speaking on topic, but I'm just going to raise the question whether anybody has ever given thought to amending the regional agreement to add a rolling average the way Minuteman uses for assessments, because having something like a 4-year rolling average would certainly soften the swings in terms of their impacts on the community. So just a thought.
Carmen, my
We-
answer
we-
is I've heard it come up more in the last year than my entire tenure. So I don't know if that will be actualized, but it continues to be mentioned.
And I know that it came up at least one finance committee meeting, I think two. So
Yes. And I think
it's
it's come up in
definitely,
Carlisle also, at least as a mention, not an action item.
yeah. I
Right.
think
And
there'd be a
it's
lot of research involved in
Yeah.
figuring out how to do that, and it would take. I would assume it would take a good amount of time to get through the negotiations, the approvals at both ends.
Yep. And there's a lot of unknowns there that communities have
Yeah.
to work through. And
Yeah.
Obviously the regional school committee is the body that makes the decision whether that actually comes up or not before,
Yeah.
Right.
as the starting point anyway. It has to go to town meetings after that.
Well, we're in the happy position of having a model to observe on how it works, because Minuteman's been doing it for several years now. So that's a place to look.
Yeah, we've
So-
done a lot of districts have a rolling average.
Many districts do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
I don't see any
see
other
no
hands.
hands. Okay, so Bob, you don't get to leave yet. Laura, you have to stay. We have one more school committee article coming up on the Special Education Reserve Fund.
So this is the motion, and it cites the law that it relates to. I'm gonna just my primary purpose is for you to understand how this works, how the fund works, and why we're asking for it. And we're not asking for any money at this point. We think that's better to have a discussion about that when the town and the schools think there's a way to fund it. But this was established through the Municipal Modernization Act, and it allows you to create a special ed reserve fund that can be used in future years for unanticipated or unbudgeted costs of special education, including out of district or transportation. Next slide. Some things just to wanted to, in terms of process, to let you know, in order to establish this, it requires a majority vote by the school committee. The regional school committee did vote for this, and local legislative body, which is the town meeting of both Carlisle and Concord. And it has to be approved by both towns in order for it to be created. Once this is established, we could include funds in our budget to appropriate into it. That would certainly be a conversation that we'd have before we did that. There might be other ways to fund it. You could potentially consider free cash. We could potentially, if we had money left in a fiscal year, ask to have it transferred. The balance in the fund can't exceed 2% of annual net school spending. So, on a $45 million budget, let's just say in some future year it's 50 million, 2% would be $1 million, the most we could put into it. So in terms of how it can be used, and hopefully this also gives some comfort to both towns, is you can't, the school committee nor the administration cannot spend directly out of the account. It doesn't have to go to town meeting again. That would be a little bit more administratively burdensome, but it does require majority vote of the regional school committee and both select boards in both towns. So in some future year, if we needed to spend this, we'd need to bring it back to you, and if it was funded. The why now is because if you remember our CPS presentation, and this article is just for CPS, our out-of-district tuition costs are going to be at historically low levels next year. And I would say probably the ratio of 6 students out of 1,800, what's that, 0.3% is, I don't imagine there's many other districts that are in the same category as us. What comes with that, though, is that we don't get significant circuit breaker reimbursements. And if we had some move-ins or unanticipated costs happen, we don't have circuit breaker funds to draw from, or we don't certainly have much in there to draw from. So the intent would be to have some reserve in case we do have unanticipated costs. The article this year is just to create the fund and not to fund it, and we'd work together with the towns. Actually, I'm sorry, I keep saying both towns. This is just CPS. It's just Concord. And so the Concord School Committee and the board would work with the town of Concord to figure out, how to fund it at some later time. And next slide, please. And again, there's the article. So I'm happy to answer any questions about it. We think it's hopefully not controversial with no dollars attached to it.
Thank you, Bob. Carlin, I see your hand up. So,
question about the impact. In this year's guideline process, we included the out-of-district tuitions. Last year, we excluded them. If this reserve fund warrant article passes, how do you see the FinCom's guideline process being impacted? If there is an impact.
Yeah, I don't know that. Well, that's first of all, it's not up to us, but I don't think we would that was an unusual year. We were told it was a one-time process to exclude out-of-district tuitions. It's just the region. This certainly creates a tool where if there is bumpiness, you could use this instead of trying to solve a one-time issue in the budget. So I mean, I think it just gives us another tool in our arsenal. The other thing is it administratively, you still have an approval process with the school committee and the select board. If you didn't have that, and we had, let's just say we had, I'm going to give you the example that another district had. We had two students go to the New England Center for Children at $330,000 each. That's $660,000. And if that were to happen, I don't think we probably couldn't absorb that. We would need to have a special town meeting to fund that and ask for more money. So it avoids having that, having to go to a special town meeting. If we had this fund, we could go to the regional school committee and go to the select board, and it would be administratively a lot easier. Certainly everybody would have the ability to ask questions and find out if it made sense to use the fund, but it's just another tool for both the town and the school.
Kathy, you had a question.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, it sounds like a sound plan, but it's only for CPS. Can you tell me why, if it's a sound plan, why you're not also proposing one for the high school?
We don't need it at the high school. We have $1.9 million in circuit breaker reimbursement. The CPS reimbursement is going to go down below $500,000 to 400 and something. There's a lot. I mean, over time, that might be something. We also have a robust circuit breaker balance. If the regional out-of-district placements continue to decline to a level where we don't have many students out of district and aren't getting a large circuit breaker reimbursement, we would probably look to do that as well. But we're in a substantially different place at the high school.
Different place. Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other hands. Bob, I have a question about how you would decide when you want to seek the funding, because, and I'm coming from a place where I am predisposed toward creating reserves. And as you are probably aware, there are going to be a couple of warrant articles that we'll be talking about at our next hearing that are seeking to create a capital stabilization fund and to put more money into a general stabilization fund for the town. But particularly in the case of the capital stabilization fund, it's because we can see, we don't want to get hit by the train that we see coming down the tracks, which are some of the capital projects that we see. So by definition, these expenses are unexpected. So I'm just curious if you've given some thought to what's the point at which you will take this authority and go to this school committee and go to the select board and say, okay, now.
Well, I think it would be good to have a meeting outside the budget process to talk about these things. We tend to get to
Yeah.
the guidelines process and we're under the gun of the budget process, both maybe that's a bad term of words, but we're under the pressure of the budget process
It's okay.
with with both the finance committee, has deadlines, so does the schools, and so it would be better, I think, it's for some of these things, more philosophical things to talk, I don't know, late summer, after
Yeah.
sometime after town meeting before the guidelines process, and get feedback. I don't know the answer, because you're right, there's no train that you can see. It's just going to hit you all of a sudden, and you're going to need the money. So I don't. I mean, we do have some optics to it. We do hear when families are moving in, but if we were to find out about students moving in, early in September, it's already too late for FY27.
Yeah,
We'd
that's
be
right.
looking for FY28. So it's a good question. I think that's the answer to that would be hopefully through a collaborative process to talk about, maybe some year when the town has extra free cash, or I don't know, but we'd be open to suggestions and didn't want to introduce this and then kind of force the funding question.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand. I see a hand from all right, so before we move on, I don't see any more hands from the finance committee, so I'm going to go to Mark Howell and let him ask his question. Hi, Mark.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Um, I do think that it would be helpful for this particular presentation to actually say Concord Public Schools on the slides so that we avoid the confusion about whether this is set up for the region or not. That's just a comment. But I wasn't clear on what's the mechanism for putting funds into this fund, and then you were clear on how it comes out, but is it
Mhm.
town meeting action? Like when is the decision made to actually move money into it?
You can do it in different ways. I'm sorry, did you finish? Were you still asking? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was my question.
Okay. So we could, for example, like the OPEB trust, put a line in our budget, just a single line item, and we probably would want to call it out so people are aware of it. But you could put a line in the operating budget to put a certain amount of money into it every year. That's one approach. You could have a separate article, to allocate some free cash to it. Um, there's, you know, I those are the two primary methods that I know. I think you might be able to set up a dedicated revenue source, but I don't know that we have one that would make sense. So I could certainly do some more research to see if there's other ways, but those are the primary ways that I understand.
Okay.
I think
It might
I think
be
that would be
useful.
part of the summer conversation as to what we think we all collaboratively all think is the best option
Yeah.
for when we get
It
there.
might be helpful for town meeting to just mention what the mechanisms are if there's a specific list of them. Thanks.
Yeah,
Or at
and I
least be
can,
prepared for that. At least be prepared for the question, Bob,
Yeah.
because it
yeah,
it
I,
could come
I
up.
have time to amend the slide deck before the meeting to just include a little bit, like maybe one more slide about that.
Yeah, that's
That'd
About
be
potential
helpful.
funding sources and timing. Yeah, but I think that might flesh it out a little bit, make
Mhm.
people more comfortable.
Okay.
Um, am I seeing? Yes, I see one more question from Eric Moore. So, Eric, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Eric Moore, 45 Francis Street, regular voter. I'm not quite sure I understand the article, and what I mean by that is, to my understanding, this is a reserve fund. That's like a rainy day account, and so for certain categories of expense that maybe change unexpectedly a few $100,000 over the course of one year to the next, it's nice to have in effect a rainy day fund. And we need to actually pass something at town meeting to actually create the container for that, and then how it gets funded. Separate question. Mark Howell raised that question. How we draw money from it, school committee approval. But one of the reasons why this is a good idea, it sounds like, is because circuit breakers may not be available for a given year. And I guess I don't really understand what a circuit breaker is in the context of how having one or not having one would motivate this particular fund. Thank you.
So, circuit breakers is a mechanism the state has to reimburse school districts for what they deem excess costs of special education. And so when it costs more than the number is about 55,000, it's 4 times the average cost foundation budget cost per student. It's getting a little technical. I'll keep it simple, but about over 55,000 per student, the state will reimburse 75% of the costs of that student. And typically, this applies to out-of-district tuition placements and transportation. Those are which tend to be more expensive. As you have less people meeting that, less of your students that meet those cost thresholds, that reimbursement for circuit breaker from the state ends up being less. And if we, in theory, had no students out of district, we'd probably have zero circuit breaker reimbursement. So because we've had at Concord Public Schools a decline from 15 to 6 students out of district, the amount of circuit breaker we're going to get continues to decline to a level where we're not going to have sufficient funding to cover a surprise. So again, it's a state funding mechanism that provides districts a certain amount, a certain percentage of funding for high cost special education programs.
Thank you.
I am seeing no further hands up on this article. Are you seeing anything, Ryan?
No hands, I'm saying, Lois.
Then I think we're at the moment where we thank Dr. Hunter and Bob Conrad for their presentations and their time. And we can move on to the last 3 articles of the evening, which I think, Jennifer, are you going to be presenting on these?
I will do the first one.
Okay, well, we'll start with Jennifer presenting on Article 18, the transfer from the Middle School Stabilization Fund.
Hello, everybody. Let me just get my notes. Okay. So Article 18 proposes that the town transfer $1.5 million from the Middle School Stabilization Fund. The funding offsets a portion of the debt associated with the middle school construction project. Ryan? So first, I'm going to start with a little timeline of how the fund was built. The Middle School Stabilization Fund was established under Article 29 at the 2020 annual town meeting, at which time $2 million was transferred from free cash. In 2022, Article 20 added another 1.5 million, and in 2023, Article 20 contributed an additional 1 million. Altogether, these actions contributed $4.5 million into the fund. As the fund accrued interest, its balance reached over $5.1 million by June of 2025. At the 2025 annual town meeting, Article 24 authorized the transfer of $1 million to offset the general fund debt impact for FY26. Following that withdrawal and subsequent interest activity, the current balance in the fund is approximately $4.22 million. This chart shows the impact of using the Middle School Stabilization Fund to offset the debt. The blue line represents the tax levy impact without using the fund, while the red line shows the reduced impact when the stabilization fund is applied. As you can see, the offset helps significantly reduce the debt-related burden in FY26 and 27. Discussion at the Financial Policy Working Group indicated a plan to use an additional $1.5 million in FY28, $800,000 in FY29, and the remaining balance in $200,000 increments until exhausted. This more detailed chart breaks down projected debt service impacts across multiple categories, including water, sewer, water trust, electric, school, and town debt. The rows labeled School X and adjusted with stabilization illustrate how the Middle School Stabilization Fund moderates the expected school-related debt service in the early years, providing targeted relief at a time when the middle school and sewer project costs are at peak. This strategic use of the fund supports long-term fiscal planning and helps create a more stable tax environment over time. To restate, Article 18 moves that the town transfer $1.5 million from the Middle School Stabilization Fund. This transfer will directly reduce the FY27 tax levy and help offset the debt associated with the school construction project.
Thank you, Jennifer. To no one's surprise, I'm gonna go first to the Finance Committee members and see if anyone has any questions about this. The only hand up I see up is Carlin. So Carlin, we'll start with you, see if anyone else wants to chime in.
Thank you, Jennifer. I was looking and comparing your graphs that were contained in the packet for the school exempt debt service and the graph after that, and they're slightly different. Can you pull up the school exempt debt service graph one more time? Because I have one question about this revision of it. All right, now the red line is the total with middle school stabilization offset. What assumptions are you making as far as the withdrawing, not just for fiscal year 27, but also for 28, 29, and 30?
Yes, for 28, additionally, a $1.5 million withdrawal. For 29, the difference is 800,000. And 2030 is 200,000. And there's a slight decline there because of interest earnings. At that target, we won't know exactly what the interest rates will provide. So the anticipation was it was 200,000 until it's exhausted.
So basically, in the year 2030, we will have overcome the hump of the middle school debt. 2030. Thank you. That's what I want to find out.
And any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? I know we're all very familiar with this this fund, how it was established and how it's working. I'm going to go to the attendees. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I see Wendy's hand is up. Wendy?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think the very last slide, it might actually cause more confusion because you're throwing all kinds of different debt in there, and I don't know if you need it. But to Carlin's earlier point, it might be helpful to, on the earlier slide, somehow illustrate the plan for the use of in 28, 29, 30, what those total funds are. So just a thought. Thanks.
Anyone else with any comments? I'm not seeing anyone. Ryan, are you?
Don't see any hands.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. And now we can move on to the fiscal year 27 town budget, followed by the town capital improvement and debt plan. So, Jennifer, you up again?
Actually, I'm going to have Carrie take this one.
Okay.
It's her budget.
All right. Thank you and good evening, Finance Committee. Article 10 requests that the town vote to appropriate $65,331,467 for the operation of the town's general fund departments and joint accounts for fiscal 27. Before walking through the details of the budget recommendation, I want to acknowledge that we are very mindful of the fact that residents in Concord pay a lot in property taxes. Our responsibility in preparing the town budget is to balance three things: respect for that tax burden, maintaining the services that people rely on every day, and planning responsibly for the future. The fiscal 27 budget recommendation reflects that balance. Next slide. 4 priorities guided development of this budget. First, financial stability. We continue to manage rising costs, particularly benefits, insurance, and contractual obligations, while maintaining responsible growth in spending. Second, future positioning. We know that Concord will soon face some significant capital decisions, particularly with regard to public safety and public works facilities. Maintaining discipline in the operating budget now helps ensure that we are financially positioned to address those needed investments responsibly. Third, maintaining essential programs and services. Departments such as public safety, public works, community development, and human services provide services residents rely on every day. And fourth, logical and strategic transitions, including operational adjustments and service alignments designed to improve efficiency without expanding government overall. Next slide, please. At the highest level, the fiscal 27 budget reflects modest growth overall. The town's general government departments are operating within the Finance Committee's guideline of an increase of 2.5%, and overall town government spending, including joint accounts, increases by about 2.7%. Total spending across all cost centers, town, CPS, and CCRSD is approximately an increase of 1.98%. And after factoring in offsetting revenue, the estimated tax levy increase is approximately 1.96%. In an environment where many municipalities are seeing higher increases, keeping growth under 2% reflects a deliberate effort to balance service delivery with sensitivity to the tax burden that residents already carry. The Finance Committee's guideline helped keep us focused on that goal throughout the budget process. This slide, and I'm on this slide, Ryan. This slide shows the town operating budget by department cost center. Overall town government operating budget increased by about $842,000, or 2.5% from fiscal 26 to 27. Public safety increases approximately 4.8%, reflecting contractual adjustments and operational needs. Public works increased about 4.3%, supporting infrastructure and service delivery, while also reflecting contractual adjustments. Finance and community development see modest increases consistent with operational needs. General government and human services remain relatively level. Our unclassified accounts decrease, reflecting adjustments in reserves and contingencies, as most of our salary expenses settled for fiscal 27. Overall, this budget reflects targeted adjustments rather than expansion of government, while maintaining services residents expect. Next slide, please. This graphic shows how the town operating budget is distributed across department cost centers. The largest portions of our budget support public safety and public works, the departments responsible for many of the services residents interact with most often. Next slide. Several factors influence this year's budget. Debt service decreases slightly, reflecting the timing of capital projects, including the roads program and the final phase of the CMS project. Health insurance costs increased about 4.3%, which is significantly lower than originally projected. The budget includes no net change in staffing, with a shift of one position from general government to public safety. Dispatch services have also been separated from the police department into a standalone division in recognition of the service provided to all public safety departments, improving coordination and operational efficiency. Elections costs increased significantly this year to reflect the number of elections that will occur during the fiscal year. It is also important to recognize that municipal budgets include a number of structural costs that are not easily reduced in the short term. Items such as health insurance, retirement obligations, and collectively bargained salaries represent longstanding commitments that communities make to their employees. Managing those costs responsibly while maintaining services is one of the central challenges of municipal budgeting. Next slide. This slide helps illustrate how town resources are allocated. Departments are categorized as either external service departments or internal service departments. External departments such as public safety, public works, human services, and community development deliver direct services to residents. Internal service departments support the functioning of town government, including human resources, information technology, and financial operations. The majority of spending supports external services that residents experience directly. In fiscal 27, 30.05 million of our budget, or 87%, will be dedicated to external services, up from 85% in the current fiscal year. While 4.4 million, or 13%, will be dedicated to our back of the house operations, down from 15% in the current fiscal year. Of the 252.58 budgeted FTEs in fiscal 27, 219.95 will be dedicated to resident services, while 32.63 will be dedicated to internal service support. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the town government operating budget by the major cost categories, personnel and expense. As with most municipalities, the largest portion of spending is personnel, including wages, overtime, and stipends, with the vast majority of that spending attributable to regular, full-time benefit-eligible employees. People are the town's primary service delivery mechanism, so personnel costs represent the majority of the operating budget. Operating expense makes up the remainder and includes supplies, utilities, equipment, and contracted services. Next slide, please. This slide begins the review of the joint accounts shared by the town and Concord Public Schools. These include group insurance, property and liability insurance, workers' compensation, Medicare, and retirement assessments. These costs are largely externally driven, meaning the town has limited ability to control them in the short term. These costs total approximately 12.16 million, reflecting an increase of about 7.9%, driven largely by health insurance expense. As you heard in the prior two budget presentations, at the start of the budget process, we were also projecting a much higher increase. We were working with 15% in health insurance. However, just last month, we received our fiscal 27 renewal, and that was an increase of 4.3%. So far less than originally anticipated, and that was due to below average claims experience and a variety of plan adjustments. After factoring in enrollment adjustments and retiree plan rate changes, we are now able to reflect a 7.4% increase. Next slide. This slide focuses on debt service, which reflects the cost of borrowing associated with major capital investments that the town has already made. Debt within the levy limit decreases as prior borrowing continues to be repaid. Debt excluded from the levy limit increases this year as we permanently finance the first portion of the borrowing associated with the 5-year roads program, along with what we expect to be the final portion of the middle school project. These changes reflect the normal cycle of municipal capital financing as we move from short-term borrowing into long-term financing. Next slide, please. We believe that this budget reflects a careful balance, respecting the tax burden residents carry, maintaining the services people rely on every day, and keeping the town financially positioned to address the significant capital investments that lie ahead. Next slide. For more information, please visit the town's website where you will find our interactive fiscal 27 budget book. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carrie. So let us begin with questions from the Finance Committee. I see several raised hands. I'm going to start with Don Hupka, I think.
Thank you, Lois. Carrie, thank you. My question is just to make sure that I'm understanding how it all comes together. Some town employees are providing services to the enterprise funds, and the town is paid by the enterprise funds for those services. Are those costs included in this 2.5 this total budget you've presented tonight? In other words, does this represent all of the employees, including those whose services are covered through the enterprise funds? Thanks.
Yeah, so we have, I guess we have three types of employees. We have employees that work 100% in the general fund for general fund departments. We have some that work 100% for enterprise and revolving fund departments. And then we have some whose salary is apportioned. And for employees, there are some general fund employees whose salary is apportioned, but they are general fund. So their expense is covered 100% within the general fund. And there can be a transfer from the enterprise fund that comes in as a revenue to offset. But our expense is 2.5%, is going up 2.5% total.
Thank
you. Carlin.
Thank you. I'm looking at the motion itself, which contains the words transfer $3,725,573 as printed in the briefing book. That text does not appear in the warrant itself. Could you explain what that 3.7 million comes from? What that means?
Yeah, those are all of the transfers that come in to offset the expense and to reduce the reliance on property tax. We have some work to do here. You might recall, Carlin and other members of the Finance Committee, that the budget motion supporting Article 10 is very lengthy because we have to identify each of the different funding sources, so the amount that comes from each of the enterprise funds. That's I believe, Jennifer, that's an aggregate of those amounts, but
Yes.
we will have to be much more specific in the actual budget motion.
And we plan to, it just didn't fit on a slide.
Not even in little teeny print, which is never a good idea. Thank you. The other question I have regards OPEB. Do you have a trust value for the OPEB trust as of a certain date, as well as an OPEB liability funding level as of a certain date?
Yes, we do. So our most recent valuation is rolled forward to June 30, 2025. The OPEB liability as of June 30, 2025 was 59.1 million, and 44.2 of that, or 3 of that, is funded. The remaining OPEB liability is 14.8 million, and that is a 74.9% funding ratio, up from 68% the prior year.
Thank you.
I think the next person with a raised hand was John Garofalo.
Yes. Can you tell me if you're still planning on hiring a part-time record keeper? And if so, where in the budget line item is that, and the amount? And then remind me, or the committee, why the current record keeper isn't sufficient. Thank you.
Sure. So we are not likely to hire a staff person. I believe we're carrying about $40,000. Maybe Jennifer or Ryan could help out. We're hoping that maybe there is a tech solution to that. You know, the staff member that handles our public records is our municipal archivist. And so he is not just handling public records. He's dealing with all of our archives. And part of his work is digitizing records. And to the extent that he is taken away from digitizing records, he's not able to make them more publicly available. So we, John, I think at the next select board meeting, we're gonna make a report on our annual report on public records requests. We are receiving about 6 public records requests per day, 365 days a year, and they're not all for simple things. A lot of them are requiring research, and it's just it's our obligation and responsibility to provide the records. It's just taking a lot of time right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Dahlberg, I think you have your hand up.
Thank you. First, I have a separate question, but on that point related to the records, additional support for records requests, I don't see that reflected in the slides or in the detailed budget book. Kerry, are you saying it's not going to happen? It's likely not going to happen, so it's not reflected?
No, it should be in the town clerk's division. Is that correct,
Okay.
Ryan or Jennifer? Yeah, and it's not, right now we're carrying it as expense, not salary, because we don't think it makes sense to hire a person.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I do have another question, Lois.
Sure,
Can I
no problem.
proceed?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
This is on Public Works. I did review the budget book. I thought it was a very helpful resource, so thank you for that. That the document that's linked at the end of your slides. And I was struck by that lays this out a little bit differently. That shows fiscal years 25, 26, and then the proposal for 27. So it shows a 3-year period.
Mhm.
And I was struck reviewing those top level town government line items or categories, how much public works has grown. It's grown from, in terms of percentages, roughly 16% of the total town government bucket in fiscal year 25 to what's proposed for 27, just about 22%. Over that to call 3-year period, that is by far the biggest increase. It's almost 50% in terms of dollars. So
Yeah.
my first question on that is that correct?
Well, I believe everything that's presented in the budget book is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, it caught my attention, and that's the context for my second piece of the question about public works. They're being asked to take on a lot. They have their quote unquote day job, which includes responding to the endless snowstorms we've had. They've done a great job with that, despite some challenges that the local press covered early in the season. They're down 2 sidewalk plows. One of our plow vendors is no longer able to service the town. They were concerned they wouldn't be able to meet expectations when it came to snow removal. So they've got their day job. They're also overseeing this this multi-year roads catch-up project, the project for which we authorized $27.5 million in additional debt. They're involved in standing up our new stormwater utility enterprise fund, and I'm sure they're involved in thinking about options for a new building, given that the current building has been described as being in failure mode. With the context of this really incredible increase in their budget over the last 3 years and all of the stuff they're being charged with working on, are you, as the town manager, are you confident that the Department of Public Works is appropriately resourced at this time?
So that's a great question, Eric. I think in the last handful of years, we've flagged Public Works as being understaffed, under-resourced. We have been prioritizing additional funding to go to Public Works. And, I think time will tell. We are looking at every position as it becomes vacant to evaluate it wherever it is in the organization, to evaluate it to make sure, do we need to replace this? If we don't, could we transfer that FTE? Is there a place that we need to transfer that FTE to a department that is maybe understaffed right now? So no, I'm not 100% confident. This winter it's been very tough for all of the reasons that you have mentioned. We have talked, I believe Jennifer and Ryan have talked to you about our initiative for next year, the priority-based budgeting, which is an AI tool that's going to help us analyze all of our spending to make sure that we're spending to align to community priorities, and where we're identifying savings, we're going to have to make an assessment. Do we need to transfer that somewhere else to meet growth in the community, or can that be released from the budget?
Thank you.
Harry, if I may.
Yes.
Sorry, Lois, is in response to Eric's note of a substantial increase in 25 to 26 in the public works, we did do a lot of realignment back then of different departments, and facilities were adjusted from many other line groupings into one department under public works. So there's been and we continued that trend this year by consolidating specific like items such as parks and trees and parks and playgrounds. So you'll see some combinations there as you look through the budget where it looks like there may be some jumps, but it's actually just a reallocation.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's helpful to call that to everybody's attention.
I am not seeing any more questions from the Finance Committee. Is that the case? So are there any questions from the public on the town budget?
There's no hands raised.
Okay, so why don't we then close the discussion on Article 10 and move to Article 11?
Oh, that's okay, perfect. Article 11, the fiscal year 27 capital improvement and debt plan requests $2,294,420 in capital appropriations, along with an authorization to borrow up to $2.4 million as outlined in the briefing book. Each year, the Capital Improvement Plan, or CIP, serves as the town's roadmap for maintaining and investing in infrastructure, equipment, and facilities that support our services. These investments include things like vehicles, technology systems, facilities repairs, and infrastructure improvements. The goal of the CIP is to ensure that Concord can maintain reliable public services while managing capital costs responsibly over time. Next slide. Before reviewing the projects themselves, it's helpful to briefly review the town's capital planning policy, which guides how projects are categorized and funded. Capital projects are organized into tiers based on cost. Capital outlay projects under $10,000 are funded through departmental operating budgets. Tier 1 projects between $10,000 and $250,000 are generally funded through a cash appropriation. Tier 2 projects between $250,000 and $2.5 million may be funded through debt issuance within the levy. Tier 3 projects, which exceed $2.5 million, typically involve the issuance of debt that is excluded from the levy limit. The policy also establishes guardrails for overall capital spending. Annual capital spending should be generally maintained around 7 to 8% of total budget. 2 to 3% should be funded with cash, and no more than 5% should be debt financed. These guidelines help the town maintain long-term financial stability while investing in necessary infrastructure. Next slide, please. This slide provides a summary of the fiscal 27 capital plan for the town in its entirety across all funding sources. In total, the fiscal 27 CIP request is for $6,239,739, $4.7 million of which is being requested under this article. As with prior years, the plan reflects a mix of facility maintenance, equipment replacement, infrastructure improvements, and technology investments across multiple departments. The projects included here are the result of a structured review process, beginning with departmental submissions and followed by evaluation by the town manager and finance department, which is then reviewed with the finance committee and select board. This process helps to ensure that projects are prioritized based on operational need, asset condition, service impact, and financial sustainability. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates how the fiscal 27 capital plan is proposed to be funded. Funding comes from several sources, including cash appropriations, debt financing, enterprise funds, and other special funding sources, including revolving funds and grants. The goal is to match the fund method to the life of the asset. For example, shorter-lived assets, such as equipment, are generally funded with cash, while longer-lived infrastructure investments are financed through borrowing so that costs are shared across the years in which the asset is used. This approach helps to maintain intergenerational fairness while also protecting the town's overall financial position. Please note that this slide also includes the FY27 CPS capital request, which is presented under Article 14. Next slide. The next several slides summarize Tier 1 capital projects, which again range from $10,000 to $250,000. Tier 1 projects typically include equipment replacements, smaller facility improvements, vehicle replacements, technology upgrades, and other operational assets that support daily town services. While these projects may be smaller individually, collectively, they represent important investments in maintaining the town's core infrastructure and operational capacity. Next slide. Across the Tier 1 program, you will see projects supporting a range of departments. These include investments in areas such as public safety equipment, facility maintenance, technology improvements, park and tree operations, and other municipal functions. The goal is to address routine capital needs proactively rather than deferring maintenance and facing higher costs later. Next slide. A key aspect of the Tier 1 program is life cycle management. Many of the assets funded through this program, such as vehicles, equipment, information systems, have predictable replacement schedules. By planning these replacements in advance, the town can avoid unexpected failures, reduce emergency spending, and maintain reliable service delivery. Next slide. This slide highlights how the proposed plan is shared across town departments. Next slide. Moving to Tier 2 capital projects, these are our larger investments ranging from $250,000 to $2.5 million. Tier 2 projects often involve major equipment purchases, infrastructure work, or facility improvements that require a larger financial commitment. Because of their scale, these projects are typically funded through borrowing within the levy limit, allowing the cost to be distributed over the useful life of the asset. For fiscal 27, we propose the following. CPW Facilities Division, $750,000 is being requested to fund facility improvements across all municipal buildings. The town's Facilities Division maintains 18 buildings across 14 campuses and totaling just over 240,000 square feet of space. Most of these buildings are more than 50 years old, and some much older, such as 141 Keyes Road, constructed in 1903, and the townhouse constructed in 1851. The needed mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems cost for these facilities totals $3.83 million, while the needed building systems cost totals $3.76 million. On an annual basis, the town sets aside funding to address the highest priority needs, and again in fiscal 27, we're asking for $750,000. CPW Highway and Grounds Division provides a variety of essential services to the community. Its fleet of vehicles and heavy equipment are critical assets to deliver these services efficiently and effectively. The American Public Works Association provides guidance on the replacement of fleet assets based upon asset type and the expected equipment life cycle. This information is used to help determine whether it's more economical to retain an asset or to replace it. In the case of these two 2011 swap loaders, it has been determined that replacement is now in order at a total cost of $800,000. CPW Cemetery Division. The town has been planning and designing a project to expand and develop grave lots at the Knoll site located within the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery to meet the growing demand for new grave sites. A full scope of work that included a conceptual design, surveying, wetlands flagging, and final design has been in process for the last 2 years in accordance with the cemetery master plan. This request seeks funding to construct 1,588 individual lots in fiscal 27. Revenue from the sale of lots and perpetual care receipts is then deposited into the cemetery fund, which offsets a significant portion of the ongoing cemetery operations. The funding request here is $850,000. Next slide. In summary, the town is requesting a total of up to 2.4 or requesting 2.4 million for fiscal 27 for tier 2 public works projects and equipment for facilities, highway maintenance, and cemetery operations. These investments help ensure that the town's physical infrastructure continues to function safely and effectively. As with all projects in the CIP, these items were evaluated based on operational need, asset condition, service impact, and long-term planning consideration. Next slide. We believe that this plan represents a balanced approach to maintaining Concord's infrastructure and supporting municipal services while remaining consistent with the town's financial policies. And I'd like to make one final footnote that on Tuesday, the CFO met with the Board of Assessors to review the status of the overlay account, suggesting it could consider release of any surplus amount. The CFO further identified 2 potential uses for surplus funds: $850,000 for the cemetery lot expansion project and $59,000 to partially offset the fiscal 27 to 29 property revaluation update. Upon due consideration, the Board of Assessors voted to release a total of $909,000 as overlay surplus. While the BOA can't direct the specific use of these funds, they will be made available for further reappropriation at the 2026 annual town meeting. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carrie. I see Carlin, Don, anyone else? Let's start with Carlin.
Okay, I'm looking at the there are 2 slides that in your presentation that differ from what we have in the packet. And it looks like they both deal with engineering. In the slide that's called FY27 Plan, Funding Sources and Articles, the total engineering in our packet is about 1.1 million, but in what you presented, it was substantially reduced to 864,500. So there's a reduction in the total engineering capital plan there. And it looks like that relates to the other slide, FY27 Capital Improvement and Debt Plan, a summary dealing with the Stormwater Enterprise Fund as a source. So can you tell me, just so that I know, because I tracked the packet that you gave us yesterday against what you presented today, what's the difference and why the change was made? Thanks.
I'm wondering if one of my finance team members can answer that, because I'm only working from the presentation I have.
We did update that this morning. We were finalizing the enterprise budgets for presentation for next week. And one of those budgets was the stormwater budget. They had not built in the full 850 that we had in the capital plan. We had discussed this actually several months ago, and it didn't get reduced on the slide itself, but it was reduced in the budget book. So it was in the budget for the 528,000. So we're working on making that consistent throughout all the documentation, but that change just happened this morning.
Good, thank you. I had one other question. In the budget for facilities for capital, in this Article 11, it's for $750,000. I think I heard you say it's for buildings. Does that mean there's nothing in there for the town-owned farms, the town-owned properties in the facilities budget?
So the farm properties that the town owns and lease, those operate under a revolving fund. So the lease income that is received is placed in into the revolving fund, and that is the source of funding that is available for the upkeep on those properties.
So that's the only source of funding available?
It is the only source of funding that is currently available. Maybe in some cases, CPC funding might be available, but that's what we have available at this point in time.
Yeah, it was raised at the Concord Housing Authority meeting today as a question about funding for making repairs to those two farms. That's all that I have. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Don, your hand is up.
Oh, thank you, Lois. Carrie, my question is about the debt service on Tier 2 capital. I know some is rolling off this year, and I don't know how this new capital compares to what's rolling off. But when last I looked at it, our debt service total was more than the 5% guideline. Policy. So can you give us a sense of where we are or where we will be for debt service as a percentage of the budget? And then also on the Tier 1, I think we saw a little over $500,000 from CPS. And if we add the two budgets together, will we be within 2 to 3% of the combined CPS and town budgets for Tier 1? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to let Jennifer or Ryan answer that question if they have that handy. I mean, if you need to look something up, Don, I can mention that, you will recall in past years, Tier 2 has been, anywhere from 3.5 to $5 million. That's much lower now because we pulled out the roads, obviously. So we will see a decrease in that Tier 2 within the levy, but not necessarily a decrease in overall debt service. But I don't have those percent calculations handy, and if neither Jennifer or Ryan do, maybe we could follow up with the committee and get that out to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, but no, I wouldn't expect you to have that at your fingertips. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other hands up. I think I just have a quick question or clarification, Carrie, and that was very good news about the overlay surplus. How does it get reflected in this request? Does the request stay the same and then we just assume that you won't need to borrow $850,000?
So the request stays the same, but the funding source will change in the motion. So if there is agreement to repurpose that $850,000 for the cemetery project, we would reduce that $2.4 million borrowing authorization request by $850,000.
And would that be done in time for town meeting?
Yes, as part of the motion.
Okay, that's important. Great. I just wanted to be clear about that.
And just, I know probably finance committee members know this, and Jennifer just went through it in the stabilization fund, but it's not been uncommon in the last 5 years or so for the Board of Assessors to vote to release the surplus.
Right.
And that's how we funded almost all of the middle school stabilization fund.
Yeah, no, that's been, there is a history for that. There's a context for that.
Lois, have a quick follow-up based on what Carrie just said.
Yes.
Carrie, you had said, I think you said that the $2.4 million borrowing authorization would be reduced by $800,000. I thought that
850.
I thought it was 850,000 for the cemeteries. Which
Yeah,
number
it
is
is.
it?
It's
850.
850.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Apologies if I misspoke.
I see two questions or comments online. I'm going to go to Cameron McKennett first.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. So Cameron McKennett, 64 Net Meadow Crossing, member of the Concord Select Board, speaking on my own behalf. So great to hear that we may be able to reduce the borrowing by 850 off of the 2.4. I guess my question is there a mechanism where we could also use free cash because we've got an increasing free cash balance as opposed to having to go out and borrow for the remaining portion of that 2.4?
Yes, that is absolutely an option. And the Finance Committee and Select Board certainly can talk about that between now and town meeting. And if that is the direction that people want to go, we would just make sure the motion reflects that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And Rebecca Noak had her hand up.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Noak of 95 Conant Street. I'm also a member of the Cemetery Committee, and I wanted to share a statement on behalf of the committee, if the time's appropriate.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. At last night's Cemetery Committee meeting, the committee voted to approve the following statement of support for the lot expansion project for Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery opened in 1855 to meet the growing need for burial space as the town's 3 older burial grounds were nearing capacity. In 1869, the land between Sleepy Hollow and New Hill Burying Ground was purchased, and the New Hill section was incorporated into the cemetery. The Chestnut Hollow area was later acquired in 1933, each expansion undertaken in response to the community's needs as existing sections filled. In the late 1950s, with careful foresight, the Cemetery Committee acquired additional abutting property. That land was developed and opened in 1998, once again addressing capacity limitations. Today, we find ourselves in a similar position. All existing sections have reached capacity, and we are currently limiting sales to as-needed purchases to ensure that graves remain available for families facing immediate need. We have land available for expansion, but development is required. This includes constructing roads, drainage systems, water lines, pathways, and laying out grave sites. Providing adequate burial space for our residents is a fundamental responsibility of the town. At the same time, maintaining a beautiful, peaceful, and well-kept landscape for families and visitors remains a top priority. The Cemetery Committee respectfully asks for your support and your affirmative vote at town meeting to approve the requested funding for this necessary expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. I am not seeing any other hands. Ryan, am I missing anything?
No, I think that's it.
If there are no other comments at this stage, I think it is time for us to close the public hearing and reconvene the Finance Committee regular meeting that all of you are invited to stay for. So, Harlan, we still have a quorum. I don't think there's a reason why we can't simply move ahead with the meeting. Do you agree?
It's up to you. If you want to do a roll call to close, or if you just want to move on to the decision, I think the effect is the same.
I don't think we need to do. All right, let's do a quick roll call just to close the public hearing and then move to the regular meeting.
This is a roll call. Do you want to close the public hearing? I think Peggy Briggs left the meeting, so she's not here. Brian Conway.
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo. This is to close it.
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Unanimous vote to close.
Then, now that we have opened our regular meeting, I am going to note the time, which is almost 10 p.m. We have basically two items on our agenda for this meeting. One is to approve the minutes of our February 26th meeting, and the other is to vote on the articles presented to us at the public hearing that was just closed. I am also going to note that we still have on the time calendar a start time of 6:30 on Tuesday, which gives us a half an hour before the public hearing starts. So we could defer at least some of the votes on the articles that we've heard today until then. And I think that might be my suggestion would be we might consider deferring. I see Carlin is yawning. I think we might consider deferring to our meeting on Tuesday the articles that we think require the most discussion so that we're fresh for doing it and we've had an opportunity to think about what we've heard tonight, revisit the presentations and maybe even watch some of the tape. So I'm not sure. I'm open to suggestions about how to proceed. I think there are a couple of articles that we heard tonight that are probably not particularly controversial or don't require a great deal of discussion. But I am, if anyone disagrees, then please let me know. The Minuteman Regional Budget, Article 17 is one that I think we might want to take up tonight. I think that the Article 18, the transfer from the middle school stabilization fund is one that we might be comfortable taking up tonight. Are there any other articles that people think we're ready to simply have a vote on? I'm open to everyone's suggestions. Paul?
Lois, what about 16?
Yes, I think that is one that we could consider, that we could take up tonight, if people are comfortable with it. If anyone has a serious objection and wants to defer it to a moment that we're a little fresher, I'm open to that too.
What about 13? That's the CPS operating budget that came in under guidelines.
Are people comfortable voting on the CPS operating budget tonight, or would they prefer to defer it until a moment we can have a more robust discussion while we're awake?
I'm okay with it.
Didn't
All right.
CCRSD also come in under guideline?
Yes, they did.
Yes, and they came in under their presentation to us that was at guideline because of the changes that they presented, or they've made it clear that they will based on the memo that that Bob reviewed with us. So let's let's take them in order. And can I have a motion to recommend affirmative action on Article 17, the Minuteman Regional Technical School District budget?
So moved.
All right, and that's Gerard. I need to record who makes each motion and who makes each second for each motion. So Gerard made the motion for affirmative action on 17.
I second it.
All right,
Paul seconded it.
Paul seconded it. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? If you want to say anything, please just raise your hand. I will be looking, and I see no hands raised. So There being no apparent need to have a discussion, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
You bet. And Gerard, I'm hoping that you will be my second set of eyes for this. Do you have the list there? Are you all set?
Ready to go.
Okay, we're doing Article 17. This is on the motion for affirmative action for Article 17. Brian Conway.
Yes.
Yeah, the votes are either yes, no, or abstain. So Brian Conway,
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo,
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg,
Yes.
John Garofalo,
Yes.
Gerard Jansen,
Yes.
Don Kupka,
Yes.
Lindsay Liss,
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez,
Yes.
Shri Tupel,
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? I don't think so.
Nope.
Okay,
We are
Gerard,
unanimous.
how many? Well, unanimous. I need to get the number of yeses. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
5,
7,
6,
8,
7,
9, 10, 11 yeses.
I have
Gerard, does that
12.
match what you have?
12.
No, I have 11.
One.
You have
1, 2,
11.
3,
Remember,
4,
take you
5,
left.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're at 11. Okay.
Okay. So 11 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
I have a question about this. Is there any way that we can group some of them and say, 13,
Kathy, at this,
14, and 15, or do we have to
if we were, I think we should have a vote on each one.
Okay.
And I think,
I just asked the question.
if we were in person, I think we could try it. But I think having to do a roll call, I think let's just continue. Are people comfortable voting on the Concord Public Schools operating budget? And if so, can I have a motion to recommend affirmative action for Article 13?
So moved.
Okay, Kathy
Thank
made
you.
the motion. Who makes the second?
Shri.
Shri makes the
Shri.
second. Okay.
So we have a motion. Do we have any discussion? Any hands raised? Okay. I see none. So I think we can call for a vote.
Okay, this is the vote for affirmative action on Article 13. Brian Conway,
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo,
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg,
Yes.
John Garofalo,
Yes.
Gerard Jansen,
Yes.
Don Kupka,
Yes.
Lindsay Liss,
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez,
Yes.
Shri Tupel,
Yes.
Lois Wassoff,
Yes.
yes. Okay, that also passes 11 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstention. Gerard, did you get the same count?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Let's go to the next one.
Okay, the next is Article 14, which is the Concord Public Schools. My list disappeared on it. It is the Concord Public Schools capital budget.
Is there a motion for, go ahead.
Yeah, can I have a motion for affirmative action on Article 14?
So moved.
Who made that
Eric?
motion?
Eric.
Eric did. Eric did. Okay, and who's the second?
I'll do that.
Who is that one?
Gerard.
Gerard, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second on Article 14 for affirmative action.
Any discussion? I see no raised hands, so Harlan?
Okay, let's do it again. This is affirmative action on Article 14. Brian Conway,
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo,
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg,
Yes.
John Garofalo,
Yes.
Gerard Jansen,
Yes.
Don Kupka,
Yes.
Lindsay Liss,
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez,
Yes.
Shri Tupel,
Yes.
and Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Okay, my count is 11 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next one.
All right. Article 15, the Concord Carlisle Regional School District budget. Vote, can I have a motion to recommend affirmative action?
So
I'm not
moved.
allowed to make the motion. Thank you, Paul.
Oh,
No worries.
wait, did Paul make the motion on 15?
Paul made the
I
motion.
did, yeah.
All right. And who does the second?
Second, Dawn.
Don
For
seconded.
Got it. Okay, we've got motion and second for affirmative action on Article 15.
Do any discussion? Any raised hands? Seeing none. Madam Clerk.
All right, let's go again. This is for affirmative action, Article 15. Brian Conway.
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo.
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
All right, that one is 11 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match that?
Yes.
Excellent. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next one.
Next article up is Article 16. The Concord School Committee's proposal for a special education reserve fund. Can I have a motion for affirmative action?
So moved.
Okay, that was
Kathy,
Kathy.
thank you.
Who's the second?
I second. Paul
Okay,
again.
Paul's
Thank
gonna
you,
second.
Paul.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion for affirmative action on Article 16.
Any discussion? I see no raised hands. Carlin, go for it.
All right, Brian, you're up again. Brian Conway.
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo.
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
And Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Okay, that's 11 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match that count?
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right, that article passes unanimously. Let's go to the next one.
All right. May I have a motion to recommend affirmative action on Article 18, which is the transfer from the Middle School Stabilization Fund?
So moved.
All right, who got the motion on that one?
Eric got the motion,
Eric
and I think Lindsay seconded.
I'll second.
Lindsay says, okay, and Lindsay second. We have a motion for affirmative action on Article 18.
Does anyone, I see no hands raised for discussion, so no discussion requested. Carlin, we're
All
getting
right.
close.
Brian Conway.
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo.
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes. Sorry.
You had me worried there. Sri Tupel
Yes.
and Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
Okay, count again. It's 11 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match that?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously. Next one.
Article 10, which is the fiscal year 2027 town budget. Are we ready for a motion to recommend affirmative action on the town budget?
I'll recommend the motion.
Okay, for Article 10, Gerard makes the motion. Is there
I
a second?
I second.
Sri,
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Wait, slow down. I've got to write this down. And
We
Sri
have
did
a
the
hand
second.
up. I think.
I
Josh-
know, I see it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's get the motion
Okay,
made, and then, thanks, Lindsay, and then, John, I gather you would like to have some discussion on this motion?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good here. I think the Board of Assessors is a great win at the end, which is really great. I think the one piece that um, just kind of sticks, it's small, but I think every little bit matters, is that $40,000 kind of earmarked for something that may or may not happen related to the records office. I think if documents get digitized a little bit more slowly, I don't think the townspeople are going to worry about that too much versus continued spend. And I think that once items get put into the budget, they don't come out. And so we put this in here now without really an earmark. It's going to be here forever, just growing at whatever rate um, the budget grows versus actually having an earmark. And I think it's kind of a nice to have for the town. It's not a must to have for the town. So as we're trying to be mindful of the townspeople and the ever increasing cost of living, this is one expense that I think we could do without. And before I would make a motion, I don't know if that's more to discuss, but that's what's on my mind here.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts about the town budget? Eric?
I have a question on that one. If they do the digitization and they get it all in a database, will it make it more efficient when they have information requests?
I, Uzi, I'm not sure if we still have Carrie on the line. I think the answer to that, Gerard, is almost definitely yes. And also what was being mentioned by Carrie, and Eric, I see your hand. I'm coming to you. Is that the information requests are now being answered by the town archivist. Um, the town archivist serves a very valuable function for the town. It's not esoteric. When I am putting together information for this committee or for the report, and I need information about the history of certain things, he's the person who digs out that motion that was made at town meeting in 2011 that everybody forgot about, that actually has an impact on what our obligations are. So and he does that for dozens and dozens of committees and boards for this town. So if his role is being compromised in his primary role, and the need that's being raised by a lot of these Freedom of Information Act requests, which are appropriate, people are entitled to ask, can be satisfied by the expenditure of $40,000 over the course of the year. I don't see that as a waste, and I don't see that as building in a permanent expense, because it's not a hire. It's not that they're creating a position and filling a position for what might be a temporary need. So, Eric, you had your hand up.
Yes, I'm a little confused about this one. I had been under the impression that this was no longer in the budget. I didn't see it in the slides. I missed it when I reviewed the budget book. After the town manager flagged that, I went back to the budget book and I do see it. But what's in the budget book, it's one sentence, if you wouldn't mind me
No, go right
reading
ahead.
it out loud. It says the town clerk's budget is increasing by $51,102, or 10.37%. This increase is due to the realignment of equipment costs and the addition of support for records management to include assistance with public records requests. So the dollar amount is not in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge difference, but that's different from what I thought I heard. And I can't tell if this is um like software or hardware or staffing. It's not clear. It's not clear to me.
Um, we still have, I think Carrie's still on the line.
I am here, and I'm happy to add a little bit if that helps. So we are looking at a variety of solutions. One of the solutions that we have tentatively looked at is, I guess I would call it an AI agent of sorts, something that sits on the website that people could start a public records request through the this piece of software, and it would ask a series of questions to help clarify the request, because a lot of the time that is spent is going back and forth because somebody makes a request maybe that's overly broad, or they make a request that puts them into the category that they're going to have to pay something for that. So there's a lot of back and forth. This would be voluntary because members of the public don't even have to put the request in writing. But if somebody was so inclined and they use this, this would be a tool that would help. So that is likely the direction that we are going in, a technical solution versus a staff person, because a staff person just doesn't make any sense in for that dollar amount, and for this work that can, it really can fluctuate over time.
John, do you have another question or comment?
Well, I just want to follow up because Lois, you made some points there. If this is a software rollout, it is embedded in the budget going forward. So if that's the tool that is most important, then so be it. But I don't think anyone should be under the illusion that this is magically going to disappear next year. An AI hopefully should make costs go down. Again, this is a small amount, so I won't belabor the point. I just think there's principle involved, and that the beginning of the year, this amount was allocated to a part-time person. Now it's allocated to AI, and the amount hasn't changed, which is interesting to me. But if it speeds everything up, I'm sure most of the people on this committee will be okay with that. I just think these little things add up, and we should be aware of them. But I appreciate the answers from Carrie and the town staff on it.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up, so I'm going to ask if someone would like to make a motion.
We already have a motion. We already have a motion and second.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. I'm sorry.
So we're ready for the vote.
Excuse me, it's 10:15. I'm slowing up. Okay. So we have a motion, a second, and we've had discussion. So and I see no further hands. So Carlin, could you do a roll call vote?
Thank you. Brian Conway.
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo.
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
And the count that I have is 11 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. Gerard, do you match that?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you much. Next one.
Okay. The final article before us tonight, and this, by the way, this will not be the record. Some of you remember that we've sometimes gone to 11 p.m. for this hearing. The final article that we have before us tonight is Article 11, which is FY27 Town Capital Improvement and Debt Plan. May I have a motion for to recommend affirmative action on Article 11? I see Don's hand is up. Don, do you want to?
Well, I raised a question about that's specific to the capital and debt plan relative to the policy where in other words, I want to know where we stand, and I'd like to see the answer on that before I vote.
Okay, that's fair. I understand. Lindsay, your hand's up as well.
Yeah, and I wondered, is it possible to vote on this before we have a discussion about funding? Because I thought that was a good question around whether we can use free cash to fund some of this capital or not. And I don't know if we need to have that discussion before or after we vote.
Then I think based on those comments and based on the work we've done so far tonight, I think we can defer this article to our next meeting. Hopefully, Don will have an answer to your question which will inform the discussion. And we can go through that point, Lindsay. I don't know. Carrie seemed to feel that whether we moved to free cash was partly up to us. She would, or at least she wanted input from Finance Committee about it. We can decide whether or not that's something we even want to discuss at our March 19th meeting. So if everyone is comfortable with it, why don't we just defer further discussion and a motion on Article 11?
Question, defer to what date? Let's try setting a date on this one.
We will be voting again on articles after our meeting, after our hearing on Tuesday.
Okay.
So let's put it there and see if, the town has replied to Don's request. So we have that information. We can make a decision then, but let's at least consider it again on next Tuesday.
Okay, so we're deferring it to March 10. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well,
almost done. One more thing.
Oh yeah. All right. I was going to let us off the hook on this, but the last item on the agenda is to approve the Finance Committee minutes for February 26th, 2026. They were in the packet. So hopefully people got a chance to look at them. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes and a second, and then we can see if we need any discussion or amendments?
I'll move approval of the minutes as presented, no, as corrected, because I actually misspelled Gerard's first name. I have it as Gerald, and I caught it, but I want to make the correction in it. So I move that we approve this as amended with the correction to Gerard's first name.
Thank you.
Can I get a second, please?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Gerard. Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the minutes as amended. Any further discussion? All right. Are we ready for roll call vote, Lois?
I see no hands up, so I think we are.
Okay. This is whether to approve the minutes as amended. Brian Conway.
Yes.
Kathy Kukalo.
Yes.
Eric Dahlberg.
Yes.
John Garofalo.
Yes.
Gerard Jansen.
Yes.
Don Kupka.
Yes.
Lindsay Liss.
Yes.
Carlin Reed, yes. Paul Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sri Tupel.
Yes.
Lois Wassoff.
Yes.
All right. I have a count of 11 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention. That motion passes. So the minutes as amended with that one correction. I have one follow-up when you're ready, Lois.
If it's anything other than a motion to adjourn, Carlin.
It is. I had asked that people who are writing descriptions for the article recommendations send them to me if possible within 2 days. And that means from today's session, the people who would be writing articles would be Peggy Briggs, Eric and Pat, Brian and Lois. And if you can get the descriptions, hopefully by March 7 or March that Monday, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? And as a matter of fact, do we need a motion to adjourn, Carlin? What do you think?
You don't. It's the last thing. You can just adjourn it.
Okay. Unless someone objects, I think we're going to adjourn the meeting, and we will see each other all in person on Tuesday night. And since we were so efficient tonight, I think we can skip the pre-meeting and we'll start at 7 p.m.
Okay.
and hopefully get through all the articles we need to get through on Tuesday. So everybody, thank you and have a great weekend. And I'll
Thank
see you
you.
Tuesday.
Adjourned 10:26. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.